Right, I hadn't planned on. I've got a web page for this talk. Can everyone hear me? Okay. Great. So I've done a web page for this talk. You can find it by going to Capillary. You can follow along on your phones, all your devices. This will be the talk that I'm going to do today. So you can follow along. There's evidence there. There's pictures and various things. So you might find that helpful. So welcome everyone. This is a nice part of the world. Nearly as nice as Somerset, but nice to see a few Capillary Wave members here and a few faces from the Wales weekend that we had fairly recently. And those of you that came to the Wales weekend, the planning weekend, will know we did a whole weekend of me talking 8 hours a day, and we still only scratched the surface. So you're not going to get, you can't condense everything that you need to know in a few hours. It's just impossible. It's like 15 years of my life trying to, divulge in an hour or 4 hours. It's just, I couldn't even do it over 2 days. So it's not going to happen today. But that is what my website's for. I put the information out on my website freely so that people can get a good feel for the way you're being governed. And it's sad to say that even that most basic of information on my website is not very widely known at all. In fact, I would say it's quite controversial. It's all evidence. I always bring the evidence, and I've had to stake my freedom on this information. So that's why I'm so passionate and diligent about providing evidence. Like I say, my website, capillarywave.com, does evidence a lot of the... Because, look, you guys came here today, I'm imagining, because I think the group, Warren invited me down, is People on the Land. So you've got an interest in seeking freedom of some description. And I've called this talk here today, Can Man Live Free from State Control? That's like the most important question you could ever ask. I feel anyway. And you're here essentially looking for freedom from state control because what you want to do isn't allowed to be done. It's not allowed. What you want to do, you want to get a field somewhere, grow your own food, maybe keep a few animals, mind your own business. I'm afraid that's illegal. So you're a bunch of rebels that are looking to, you're going to have to swim against the current way of thinking, aren't you? And I've happened to have done that for a very long time myself. And if you're thinking like everyone else, you're in the wrong game. So clearly you're not. You're here today, so you think a little bit differently, and you're open to at least to hearing new information. And I've got some new information today, which actually one of our Capillary Wave Gold members on our forum found and shared on our forum. And I feel it's really explosive, especially for this topic of can you be free of state control and looking to get back to live on the land. Obviously, you don't live on the land, you live in your bodies, but I'm sure we'll talk a lot about all this sort of stuff as we go on. We can see, can't we, that the state, well, I can see anyway, I don't know, I mean, I'm quite out there, but the state at the moment, I mean, they're arresting, like, a woman got arrested in London for feeding pigeons. Teacher in Ireland been arrested for refusing to call a boy they. I mean, I think the world's insane, and that's why I'm just quite happy to go on my bit, my field, and close the gates and forget about it all. But and I've managed to do that fairly successfully. Now, I've never ever said it was easy, because you're taking on the state. That's essentially what you're doing. And when I say taking on the state, that comes at local level. That comes down to your... Well, a local authority and a council are different things, but then I'm sure I've talked about that, and I don't. So yes, going back to my point, taking on the state for you guys is going to look like dealing with your local council. That's what it looks like. Someone with a clipboard comes around from your that's the state. Thankfully for you guys, they've got a constitution, and one of the first things I advise many of my members to do is go and download a PDF of your constitution of the local council and read it. Now, a lot of it will be a load of nonsense that don't concern you, like licensing committees and whatever, but there are scrutiny panels and there are auditory panels and there are independent persons and there are monitoring officers and these are important persons when it comes to law and governance. And every council has got a monitoring officer, and his job, I think the monitoring officer authors a council's constitution. It's his job to know what's written in that document. It is his duty to know what's written in that document. So he's your port of call when you're expressing your newfound wisdom, shall we say. So he should know what's written in that document. It's his legal duty. Most of them are legally trained in some way, but yeah. And he is also in touch often when a controversy comes in. He's got to notify independent persons. So each council has I don't know if they're on the board but they're what's known as their title is independent persons, and that could be any member of Joe Public that the council sort of outside the council's scope, and they get called in to be an independent set of eyes on anything controversial or anything. If someone like me, I'd sell to the council that they don't know their own constitution and they're acting ultra vires, and they were, and all of your councils will do the same, because these arguments are not commonly known, but they're becoming more known, and I fear and feel that these monitoring officers who author councils' constitutions will start to alter the wording in these constitutions. That doesn't change the law. It just makes it more tricky for members of the public to understand what's going on. It doesn't change the status quo. The law's the law. People and persons. These two banners here express perfectly, this is the law right here. You're looking at it in the banners here. It's on the webpage. The legal system and the lawful system. I often say that there's only two systems of law that mankind can exist under, and you've got a choice. So you can exist under man's law, which all of us have done until we've woke up, and you can exist under God's law. And the legal lot say that this side, God's law, is the infallible truth. It's there in their own acts of parliament. It's the Ratification of Faith Act 1560, which some of you have probably heard me talk about. So they've got written in their act of parliament a statement that says the Bible is the infallible truth. So you've got the high ground. You've got the advantage. If you claim that position of being one of the people, now it's not easy and it's not simple, right? You've been acting like ducks on the government duck farm for a very long time. You're starting to quack a little bit differently now, and you're not waddling so much. So you're going to have a chat with someone about your newfound status as a swan, perhaps. But these are the conversations that I had with Mendip District Council for, I don't know how long it was. Maybe it was 3. It was certainly no shorter than 3 years. Probably no longer than 5. I don't know. I wasn't keeping count. And in the early days, when I found some new information, because I was just a carpenter, I had no interest in the law whatsoever. I could care less. And then my life changed. It was turned upside down. So I had to start caring. Otherwise, it was the end of the road for me. So I started digging around in policies, and I used to hate reading. Trust me, I hated reading. I didn't read books and things, and I certainly didn't read a Bible. But now it became my life. So, so my argument with the council probably went on from 3 to 5 years. And bearing in mind, I didn't know what I was doing. I was a child in the dark, blindfolded, clueless. But that's a great way to start, because I was a blank page. I didn't come with my own ego, any pre-programmed thoughts about how things should be, which is what I've got to overcome with a lot of members and people I talk to. I'll just jump that in now. A lot of you think you're sovereign. Like, yeah, forget that. You don't want to be sovereign. You've never heard me talk about being sovereign. And if I thought I was sovereign, I wouldn't have been able to build a farm. Things like this. There's a lot of unprogramming to do. And so, yeah, I was a blank page. But that was an asset. That was an advantage to me, because I was stumbling around in the dark going, what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? Like our children when they're 5 years old. It's annoying. And especially when they ask us at 5 years old a question that we don't know the answer to. It's like, oh, shut up and eat your tea. Well, that's what the council like with me. Because they would come to me and say, Mr. Edwards this and Mr. Edwards that. And I'd say, hang on a minute. That's not my name. And they'd scratch their head and go, it's not, is it? No, it's not. Why are you calling me that? I don't know. And these are big burly ex-coppers. And and they would call me on their paperwork. It would say customer services, and I'm in the building game, and I know about a customer relationship, and that's a legally binding situation, because unless my customers signed a contract, I couldn't get money out of them. If they decided not to pay, which some developers did do, then you can't get money out of them. So being a customer is a legal relationship, and they were calling me a customer, and I was just a builder, and I knew that much, that hang on a minute, I'm no customer of you guys. So I would ask these big burly ex-coppers, why am I a customer? What's that mean? And they looked as dumbfounded as I was. So I could see on their face, I thought, these guys ain't got a clue either. So I kept pushing these points, and they, you could see them scratching their heads, metaphorically scratching their heads. They're like, oh, we want to nail this jumped up carpenter, but he's got a point. And that is the point. Asking simple, honest questions can open new doorways, and especially if they're relevant. And obviously, if their paperwork is calling me a customer, I want to know why. Well, I know why that is now, but that's a long story. And so I've not prepared this talk before. I don't know how I think we're going to have the first session is about an hour and a half, then we're going to have a break for a cup of tea or whatever, and then a bit of an afternoon session. So I'm not going to take questions in this first part, but we will have time for questions and near the end, okay? So, can man live free of state control? So, well, I actually know the answer to that because I've done it, and I don't. This almost sounds arrogant, doesn't it, saying that? But like, I just have, and it wasn't easy. And as I said earlier, I had to. Now, everybody I knew, including all my family, apart from my wife, everyone said it couldn't be done. Like everyone, and I consulted solicitors. This is before I was in a tight spot. I asked everyone that I possibly could, professionals and otherwise, and they're like, forget it, you can't do it. But I had no other choice. I had nowhere to go. And I thought it probably could be done. Call it naivety, call it stupidity. But anyway, so I pressed forward. And I started to explore the possibilities of whether it could be done. And when I came across the word person, I knew it could be done. Because this word person although it's mentioned in the Bible, and obviously if we're talking about the legal system and the lawful system, all the evidence you need on the legal system is in the Acts of Parliament. And if you're going to take any evidence and stand on this lawful system, then there's only one place you can go to prove your point, and that's the Bible. And as I said, this lot say the Bible is the infallible truth. So you're off to a good start if you'll only claim it and realise it. And again, I wouldn't have gone so far as to say I was an atheist, but if you came to my place saying, Clive, if you read the Bible, you can build a farm, I'd have shook your hand, said thanks very much, and got on my way. But so I've done it. But I was willing to go. I had no ego tied up in this, just pure survival. So I would go, and I don't care who it upsets. I'll go where the truth takes me, where the evidence, where my findings and my evidence take me. And I couldn't rely on anyone else. I can't rely on you or you or you. I'm going to prison if I get it wrong. You're not going to stand in my place. So I can't rely on what John Harris said 15 years ago or someone else, or, there's plenty of people, and I don't knock any of these guys because they were like me, looking for answers. So I try very hard not to get myself involved in what other people are doing. I just try and explain what I've done. And if you like, certainly on planning, I've come through the other side. And they didn't want to have an argument with me about planning, because in the end, I came to understand it very well. Not just the planning system, but obviously the system of law and governance. So that's a lot of waffle that I didn't have written down to start with. There's a few questions to start with. So there's about 5 questions that I'll ask near the start, and we'll get to at the end. And so question 1 is it possible for mankind to live a life free of government control? Well, we've just touched on that. Are there communities in the West that live free? I mean, do you know anyone that lives free of government control? I'm glad you mentioned the Amish, because they're going to feature heavily in this talk today. Because, yeah, well, they're exactly. The police can't get their teeth in the travellers, can they? It's like, no, they're like this. The coppers, as we all know, are like this. No, well, that's because they don't have any paperwork. So what they do in Glastonbury is when the travellers roll into town with their children and whatever in their caravans, the council visit them and say, would you like some free money? And they go like, yeah, sign this. Now they can smash their caravans up because they've signed and made an application and they've enrolled their children in the council schools. That's how they do it. It's like, sign this paperwork, admit to being Mr. Smith. Yeah, Mr. Smith, yeah. Would you like to go to school? Would you like some money? Yeah, I like all that, yeah. Thanks. Sign this. Right, move the caravan. That's the same as planning permission. Would you like a house? Yeah, would you? Oh, great. Pop in a planning application. We'll review it favourably. There's development going on around you. Yeah, there's the application. Yeah, no, rejected. Same deal. It's like, come on into the trap. Come on into the trap. They get jurisdiction and tell you to piss off. So yeah, you mentioned the Amish. We're going to get onto the Amish. In fact, it's a focal point of this, because I was thinking about this talk, and I was thinking, because I don't like to talk about the same stuff. That's why I pulled away from some engagements this year. I've not done any new content on my website. And because and I've got some new things to write and to explain, and so I don't like keep repeating myself. That's why I make a few videos of, like, if you want to see what I've said last year, just have a look online. So I thought I wanted to do something a bit different with this talk, only slightly different, but there's a lot of talk out there about, private communities and whether you can gain, do you think you can gain freedom in a community, as a community? Like, all you lot, go and live on that field over there. It can't be done. You come into this world alone, naked. You go out alone and naked. And if you want freedom, you're going to have to do it on your own as well. You're going to have to either be prepared to face a judge. Now, in my case, like some of this I have to surmise on things because I don't have all the answers. I don't profess to have all the answers. I just walk the path that means I've come to understand what I understand. And some of the things surrounding my journey on the periphery, I have to make educated guesses on, and looking at the evidence and work out how that might look from a legal position and trying to forge a way forward. So in my own case, they didn't want to take me to court. They threatened it a few times. And then when I started to get confident and understand a few things, I threatened it a few times. And the minute I said this to someone yesterday, but the minute you lose fear of court is the minute they don't really want you in court. All right. So with the Crown, it's like wherever the biggest, scariest door is, where they say, "Whoa, don't go there." It's like you want to have a poke around and see if you can pick the lock on it. That's where you want to go, because like me, I mean, I was terrified of court. I'm not standing here giving it the big one, saying, "Yeah, it's." I was terrified of court, perhaps like most of you guys here. It's we're all brought up in schools, and it's like, yes, miss, no, miss, can I go to the toilet, miss? It's drummed into us, authority, authority, authority. It's drummed into us, isn't it? Like, and I was talking I was in Bristol Crown Court only yesterday with a grown man, farmer, and I'm sure he won't mind me saying, because I had a bit of a kicked him at the backside about it. It was like a little 4-year-old in the dock, and it's like, we almost revert to type when we get all these judges looking over the glasses at you, speaking in a certain way, and you've been an awfully naughty boy, and all of this. You've got to overcome. That's why I put myself into court. I said, you've got to go to the scariest doors. I was terrified of court, so I put myself in court. They wouldn't take me to court, so I went and did things to make sure I got into court. Like driving, speeding and things, right? Because I knew, listen, I'd rather go and have a chat with a judge about speeding when there's not much on the line at all, rather than my first time chatting to a judge is about my ripping down my farm. So I decided, weighing up all things, I thought, well, I need some sparring practice. I need to get in these courts. And that's what I did. Again, you got to think differently to everyone else. Like we saw that during COVID, yeah? You got to think differently, guys. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but yeah, and even if that means for you guys at the start, Going down, look, even going into your local magistrates and going through the security checks and going sitting in the public gallery for a few hours. Maybe that's a once a week thing, once a month thing for you. But do it. Familiarise yourself with these buildings and the security staff and the procedures. Then, because if you're in this room and you're thinking about buying a field, you've just placed yourself at a very high chance of being imprisoned, being arrested, going to court, and whether you succeed or not depends entirely on your commitment to and your conviction. If you believe that Keir Starmer and legislation rules your life, then you're going to get convicted under the Town and Country Planning Act. I don't happen to believe that. If you believe that you're a creation of something higher than that, God, you don't have to listen. I'm not expecting you to go run out of here and set up your own churches tomorrow. Like, let's be realistic. It's like, because that wouldn't work with me. Like, it's slowly catchy monkey. It was breadcrumbs. Now, I always say that if anyone's prepared to scratch and dig around and truly find the truth and only be guided by information and evidence and facts, you're only going to end up at the Bible. I promise you that much. It's called the Book of Truth. You know everything over here is a lie. It's legal fictions. You know politicians are liars. You know, I'm preaching to the choir again here, aren't I? But yeah, this is a side of truth over here, guys. So,
question. Truth. Is that just in their eyes, or is it really the truth, or,
So the question was, truth. Is it just the truth in their eyes, i.e. the legal's eyes, or is it the truth? It is the truth. In the Bible it says Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. You're all dead over here, guys. That's the deals with the dead, necromancy. The Bible talks a lot about it. Raising people for the dead. I was dead. Mr. Edwards is dead. Clive, if you like, isn't. Maybe I was reborn when I changed my beliefs and came back over here. And to answer your question, yeah, they've got an act of parliament that not only says the Bible's true, they say it's the infallible truth, exempt in error from knowledge, judgment, or opinion. Like, that's just about everything. So, you mentioned the Amish, and let's have a look at the Amish. So, who are the Amish? The Amish, now, so I often say, like, when you think of so I'll say it now. When you think of a community that of freedom and perhaps totally separate from government, a lot of people will reach to the Amish because they live like it's the 1800s. They have horse-drawn buggies, they don't have cars, they don't have mobile phones, no technology. I know this, but basically speaking, they don't have technology. It's really primitive, and they live outside of the system. That's what most people believe. And I mentioned this at a festival I was at, and I asked the audience, I said, would most people consider that the Amish are a buzzword is a private members association? And everyone was like nodding their heads. And I'm just saying. And because on the outside, it looks that way, doesn't it? They live in a field somewhere, don't mix with, they school their own children, and they don't integrate with the wider society. So it looks to all intents and purposes that they are separate and that they are a private community. Well, we'll examine that today because it's relevant to if the Amish, we'll decide whether the Amish are free or under the state control. And if they're not free, you ain't free. Because they're pretty primitive and do all they can to exist outside of the normal social norms. So, and the Amish are a Christian community. So you'd think, I mean, I've met many Christians who haven't got a clue what I talk about. But again, I wasn't from a Christian family. I mean, like, just a normal, average, working class family. We didn't go to church. I used to go to Sunday school, but it wasn't rammed in my throat, down my throat. Jesus, in my mind, till I was about 30, was some hairy dude walking around healing people. That's cool. That's good in my book. So I didn't have any pre-programmed Christian dogmas. Again, I was just a child asking childlike questions. And the Bible says a lot about, the meek and the humble and being like a child, and that was certainly me. So you would think that these Amish, being a Christian community, would understand the Bible and what the Bible teaches, and you'd understand out of everyone that they'd have a good shot at being free. So to follow on some more questions, would it be fair to say that the Amish are far more removed from society and therefore government than all of you? I think that would be fair to say. Would it be fair to say that the Amish are about as detached from government and society as you can be in the West? I would say that yeah, they're one community that I think most people would agree are that very detached from normal society and government. So then, are the Amish free of state control? Before we begin to look at the answers to these questions posed, let's have a look at the system of law and governance on Earth. How are people on Earth controlled? Now, I say that I don't like to repeat myself, but I have to go through this because this is core fundamentals that most people don't understand. Most people have no clue. Like myself, thought I knew how we were governed. If you ask most people, maybe many in this room, and say, who are the government, and they'll go, point to London and it's that lot, Keir Starmer. It's not. If you're a citizen, you're the government. It's you. And I've got an article on that. It's one of my first articles, which I can't remember the name of right now, but it's on the website. Oh no, that's the next one. Yes, but that explains this, Warren. Yeah, thank you. So there's two camps. I've said on Earth, as mankind, there's only two ways you can exist. You're either under man or God. And at Matthew 6:24, so the Book of Truth says, no man can serve two masters. And it says two masters for a reason. There's only two camps you can be in. And then at Acts 5:29, it says, then Peter and the other apostles answered and said, we ought to obey God rather than man. Especially because a lot of these Christians will believe, no, you're meant to do what the government says. No, I don't go along with that. And I don't feel the Bible says we should either. And again, I've got an article on that called Government versus God, which goes into the reasons why. So there are only two systems that you can exist under, God and man. And the legal, and in the Bible, it says God's lot, if you like, we're just talking simple terms. God's lot are people. So the legal lot, when they talk about God's lot, generally speaking, they're called people. And the legal lot, if you're a citizen of the state, you're called many things. Citizens, persons, residents, subjects, these type of words are legal words denoting your legal status. Commoners, and a commoner is the lowest. If you're a citizen of the state, there's nothing lower than you at law. Nothing. Even as you will well know, Tesco's and some of these non-existent corporate fictions have more sway in the courts than you do. Because if that's government policy, then that's the way it'll go. And yeah, sadly as that guy, that Irish teacher Enoch Burke is finding out, he doesn't understand that he's a citizen. He's claiming, he's talking about the Irish Constitution and citizens' rights. I don't want citizens' rights. Just leave me alone with all your citizen stuff. I don't want rights. I don't want prisoners' rights. I don't want citizens' rights. I'd stick your rights. I don't want them. So.
Sorry. Wasn't it about 4 years ago or something, there was an Amish dairy farmer that the state came in and closed him down?
Yes.
For milk products or something, and they were selling to tens of thousands of people or something. Is this?
Yeah, that's right. So the question was about the Amish for those that couldn't hear, but we'll get on to we're going to dig into the Amish and see if they're free or not. And if they're not free, that doesn't bode well for you guys or anyone else listening to this online. And yeah, so the two systems. So as I was saying, the legal lot, in general terms, called God's lot people. And if you're a state citizen, you're like a person, a resident, all of these words, subjects. So the king, you've probably heard me say this before, but the king wears two crowns of office. One crown reflects this jurisdiction, and the other crown reflects that jurisdiction. So that's the Roman. It's called the imperial crown. They do tell us. Imperial means Roman, and a country is run on civil law, civil rules, Roman law. Right, so we're still under Roman rule. And the other crown is the St. Edward's crown, which is the crown of God. right? So that's the king's 2 jurisdictions. Then that rolls down to judges, and so judges swear 2 oaths. I mean, if there weren't 2 jurisdictions, there's no need to swear 2 oaths, or for the king to wear 2 hats. And I'm going to evidence something today, a new piece of information. Well, it's new to me anyway, and I've been digging around in this field for a long time. That's going to just blow the lid and show very clearly 2 jurisdictions in the. But we'll get to that. It's about who owns the land, which is going to be really relevant to you guys. So I'm quite excited to get to that bit. So judges, again, swear 2 oaths, reflecting the 2 jurisdictions. And you have to be, like, to find these things out, it takes extremely diligent reading of these oaths. It's not something when I say diligent reading, when I used to get a letter from the council, I used to basically look at every word in a law dictionary to see what they were saying, because they're saying not what you think you're saying. And that's half the problems we cause upon ourselves. They say, oh, you've moved onto the site. And first, I'm a builder. I work on sites. My farm isn't a site. Whatever words they're dishing up for you, you do not want to eat it. You need to check it and check the definitions, because they're not saying what you think they're saying. So going back to these 2 jurisdictions, the police, you get a police officer on this side, and he's a policy enforcer. And you get a police constable on this side who swore an oath to protect people. Of course, just like my council didn't have a clue about their own constitution, the police don't have much of a clue about their 2 roles either. And again, this rolls down to your local council. So in your local council's constitution, again, I highly advise downloading the entire PDF of the council's constitution, because they may well change it. Now, recently, I've been helping and advising other citizens on planning issues. And I will quite gladly take Gravesham Borough Council's constitution, Mendip District Council's, Braintree's. I'll take it. It's all Crown stuff. Just because you might currently live in the district of Bournemouth or whatever the local council is around here, doesn't mean to say you can't grab Mendip District Council's constitution and say, look, this is what they say over there. This is what they're saying over there. The king does this. The police say that, and they're all legal. Just so that's what I do anyway. Don't be bound. Like, free your minds. Don't be bound just by your own local council's constitution. So, and again, this is all evidenced in and we'll go through. Well, in fact, we'll go through it now. So, 2 camps, 1 constitution. Right? These are the 2 camps: legal and lawful. This is what you've got to contend with. Now, no one from the legal side is going to explain the lawful side to you. It's like trying to explain the Eiffel Tower to a goldfish. Right? They can't talk about it. They can't discuss it. They don't understand it because it's totally alien to them. It's a different world. That's why when the police talk to you and say, can I have your name and address, which we'll get onto in a minute, they go through, they're just trained to go through certain questions to ask with you, and you give them all the answers to place you firmly in the legal jurisdiction. So, 2 camps, 1 constitution. So in Mendip District Council's constitution, which is on the webpage here, associated with this talk, it says the responsibilities and duties of councillors. The main purpose of the job of councillor: A, to represent the needs and priorities and aspirations of the electorate and the people of Mendip. Right? So that little word "and," I often say, like in law, at law, it's these very small words that, like, I live in the United Kingdom. You live in the United Kingdom, do you? Do you want to meet me in the swimming pool or at the swimming pool? One of them, you're getting wet. These small words have huge consequences. If you live in the United Kingdom, you're bound by that jurisdiction. The United Kingdom doesn't exist in terms of law and governance. All right, in terms of law and governance. The United Kingdom is a body politic. Do you want to meet me at the tree or in the tree? Like, when you say it in sentences like that, it sounds daft, doesn't it? But we do it all day, every day. Where do you live? I live at my house. So you're dead here, are you? That's what happens at court. Judge say to you, where do you live? And you'll say, 23 Acacia Avenue, Bournemouth. And you go, that's why they wear black, because they're dealing with the dead. Like, you live in your body. That's common sense, yeah? So, again, I go off track here and there. So, right. Yeah, the electorate and the people. Yeah, it's the small words. And. Electorate and people. If there isn't two jurisdictions, you don't need the word and. You're just the electorate or the citizens or whatever. So, to find ways of effectively communicating with the electorate and the people of Mendip, to explore ways of being accountable to the electorate and the people of Mendip. So again, it's just not a throwaway comment. It's just not like, oh, a mistake, or because people would try and excuse it away. It's like, oh, that was a mistake. They didn't really mean that. It's throughout their constitutions and in various other constitutions, which now we've got members of Capillary Wave now on our website. We've got on the forum there, we've got the People's Library. So we've got people from all over Britain scouring their constitutions and putting their findings on our webpage, which are like the best one so far was one of our members found Gravesham Borough Councils, which I'll get onto in a second. But this is Braintree District Council's constitution, where it says they're accountable to local people. It says they help councillors represent their constituents. As the constituents are on this side, again, people are on over this side. Ensure that those responsible for decision making are clearly identifiable to local people. And at page 180, it says the role of members and officers effectively represent the interests of their ward and of the individual residents. So, yeah, we'll get on to ward in a minute, wards and districts, because councils run on wards and districts, and that's self-explanatory what those are. And I've blown the lid off those pretty well. Respond to residents' inquiries and representations fairly, impartially. And then again, it talks about people. Be involved in decision making for the people of the district as a whole. So they talk about their residents of the ward, right? On one hand, the residents of the ward. And in other constitutions and in this one, they talk about the ward as a whole. So there's the ward, and the ward as a whole includes people. So that's what this section here says. It says be involved in decision making for people of the district as a whole. You'll often see that in your council's constitutions. It'll talk about the ward and the ward as a whole. So, you know, they've got a certain section of the community there in their ward, but the ward as a whole includes those that don't vote. You can't be in the Bible, it says you'll make one singular vote, like for your dad. Don't be voting every 4 years for these morons. Because you can't be a voter. To get on the vote, to be a voter, you have to get on the electoral register. Well, now you're in the game. You've consented to all that. And that's one of the things, one of the basic things. Listen, we'll get onto it in a minute because it's approbate and reprobate. Is you cannot be claiming the benefits of the state and telling them to like put two fingers up to them at the same time. That doesn't work. So this is one of my favourites. This is Gravesham Borough Councils. Again, one of our members found this one out, and so this is just for me. It just sums it all up. Allow local people to have a real and informed say about issues that affect them. So here's the local people. You guys have got a real and informed say. Okay, imagine that. These have got a real say. Well, so obviously the others don't have a real say then. Is that how it works? So that's at point one. At point two, that was point two. This is point three. Explain to the electors and the council taxpayers. So these lot they're accountable to and they've got a real say. This lot are having it explained to them. And if you're having something explained to them, you're not involved in the decision-making process. Right? You're being told what's happening. So, explain to the electors and council taxpayers the reasons for particular policies and priorities. That's there in black and white in their own constitution. So, so my next heading here is the two camps side by side, and that's these two banners. These two banners sums up, if you can understand what's going on with these two banners, then you understand the system, you'll understand the system of law and governance. Because this legal system, you'd like a...
Are you able to confirm or not, is it policy of the legal system to ensure that they have representation or give representation to the people under the lawful system, and their own policies compel them to...
So the question is, do the legal systems policies compel the legal system to take notice of the people on this side? The answer to that is yes. These councils' constitutions spell it out. It's the only place I've found where it actually spells it out in black and white. It's scattered about. They scatter it about. They sprinkle it about. Look, I spent a lot of time picking up these sprinklings and trying to put them together. Right? It's like a jigsaw puzzle that's been scattered about in legislation and rules and policy. And I've spent a long time, and going to courts is like jet fuel for information and learning, for me anyway. When I go to court, I always learn something new. Or because these judges, it annoys me when I hear people say they're all corrupt. And I'm not saying corruption doesn't exist. I'm not stupid. Corruption exists in every walk of life. Plumbers, carpenters, judges, police, corruption exists. But if you're making these laws, now if you're a citizen of the state, you're going to get the smelly end of the stick. If you're one of the people going to these courts, where these judges judge for God and sit under a motto that says God in my right, they might throw you a bone. If they can see you're genuinely, heartfeltly searching for answers, they will throw you a bone. I've been in loads of courtrooms where the judges just said a sentence, or I've heard two different judges say, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. What's he doing talking about the Bible? What does that mean? Well, I know what it means. He was telling, my friend, you're one of Caesar's, sunshine. You'll do what Caesar says. So, because he didn't have his argument right. But if the Bible's got nothing to do with it, why have they got a motto that says Dieu est mon droit? They're sat under a thing that says, in French, just to make it harder for you, but it says Dieu est mon droit, and it means God in my right. So God's right there in the courtroom, staring at you in your face. The judges have got a maxim that says judges judge for God, and another one that says, is punishment enough for a judge to know he's judged by God? These guys, I've been in courtrooms where I've seen people talk about the Bible and have great effect on these judges. These judges change their tune immediately. And I was at Bristol Crown Court yesterday with someone, and I explained to him how a friend of mine was at court, and he mentioned about to the judge. He was sticking by and holding on to his legal name. All right. So when I say legal name, that's two names, Clive Edwards. And the judge sort of said to him, and he'd been in prison. This is over planning. So you're dealing that this is what is the real consequences for what you are thinking about doing. He's been in prison more than once, and he's got his head in this side. So it's real awkward for him because he knows he can't go back to that. You cannot turn back. It says in the Bible, if you're ploughing a field, you look forward and keep going. You don't look over your shoulder. So the judge gave him. This is what he told me. The judge said, take 10 minutes with your partner, go down to the cells for 10 minutes, and then I'll bring you back up and we'll have a chat about your name again. So that's what happened. The judge was trying to help him, but he was adamant that surname's his. And it was a female judge, and she came out and she asked him very nicely, so, you had to think about what we said. So, right, Clive, what's your name? Clive Edwards. And he said she turned on a sixpence, sent him straight to prison. I know these things because I've been in courtrooms like this, and I've been doing it for a long time. I know how poisonous the surname is. So if you touch that name and if you touch that birth certificate, they'll take you down with it. So hopefully I answered your question. Went off on a bit of a walk, meander around there as well. So the two camps side by side here is very clearly. It's on the webpage. The legal system, so I was saying that the lawful system is perfection. It's the truth, it's infallible, so it can't be argued against. It stood the test of time. It can't be beaten. The system that you're involved in, cannot be beaten. That's why it doesn't work. I've been on interviews and things before when people say, oh, this is your system. How does your method work? If it was my method, how's someone in New Zealand going to be free that's never heard of me? That doesn't make sense to me. And I'm just a simple guy. So if it's Warren's system or Wendy's system or your system, then it ain't a system for everyone, is it? By definition. So it's the system. And that's why it's available to everyone throughout the Commonwealth. So people in New Zealand can use these same arguments that I'm explaining today because it's the system. It can't be circumnavigated. There's no cheat code. It's just dedication that's going to be required from you to understand it. A lot of courage, because you're going to have to go, possibly, if you attack this like a lion at the start and just go on a mission to find out what you can. I put my life on hold, and that's what I did. And I became such a pain to men at District Council. I bet every time my name was mentioned, they were like, oh, Christ, not him again. And that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted everyone at Mendip to know my name and what I'm doing. Then the county council, I wanted them to know about me as well, because I didn't want my stuff smashed up. But I was prepared to have it smashed up, by the way. I've said to them, smash it up, by all means. Doesn't make you right and me wrong. But I'll start the mixer up the next day and I'll start building again. Like, that ain't going to stop me. So I made sure the county council knew about me. Then government departments above them. But you could ask anyone at Mendip District Council whether they believe that they're Clive Edwards' authority, and they'll go, yeah, no, not him. And that's the desired outcome, because they're not my authority. You've got to have a certain amount of that in you guys as well. And I'm not saying, like my missus, my wife, no titles, don't be dealing with titles, but my wife, we've been on a long journey, and it started I got her on board when I got rid of her parking ticket. So got rid of 75 quid parking ticket. She thought, well, he sounded a bit crazy lately, but he saved me 75 quid, so there might be something in it. And we've gradually gone along through like the arguments, because when you start swimming against the tide, the arguments get more and more serious, and you've got a million different opportunities to go and have an argument with the legal system. Parking tickets, council tax. They give you 1,000 opportunities to go and get some sparring if you want it. It's all there. Now, I would recommend anyone, like obviously on my website, if on the Matrix, at first, Neo learns how to dodge bullets. Then when he's actually fully awoken, he's just like, yeah, bullets go away. So it's a bit like that with law and governance. If you're getting parking tickets and things, you're in the dodging bullet stage. You need to deal with the paperwork, so that's not even a problem. It doesn't come onto your horizon. But for starters, anyone's branching out, go and get yourself a parking ticket and go and have an argument. What you're doing is paying 50 quid for your own education. Right? Can I beat the parking people for 75 quid? That's what you're doing. That's the stakes. Go and win an argument. If you can't win a parking ticket argument, don't bother trying to build a house. Well, I say that, I broke all those rules, so don't listen to me either. Read the Bible. Right, anyway, where were we again? Went off for a bit of a wander again. So basically what we're looking at, so these are the two systems side by side, and what law and governance is about is two families. That's what it comes down to. God's the father of this family over here. Christ's church is Mother Church, and you're all children of God. So that's the same over there. That's what they've done here. And that's why the Christians, the religious Christians, the Church of England Christians, and all the other denominations, don't have a clue, because they've had their teeth taken out of the tiger. It's like, don't tell them that, don't tell them that, don't tell them that. And they don't read the King James Bible.
So, quick one. Are the Muslims at a disadvantage?
They'll never be free.
Because they don't, yeah. Right.
They'll never be free because they don't accept Christ. If you can't accept Christ, you're not going to you're not going to be free. It's Christ that takes you above the law. But that's a journey, that's a discussion perhaps for another day. But it's worth, you brought the question up with the Muslims, obviously, and it's extremely relevant. It's a really good question. And one that I've toyed with and thought of, because I see the Muslims in the parliament. Well, you can be what you want over there. They're all under different, they're not here. If you're in parliament and a councillor, and you're over there, one of the persons of state. So it doesn't matter what you are over there. You can call yourself what you want. You can believe what you want. You can even be, what's that Star Wars thing? Jedi. That's how I believe it's actually been accepted as a religion. So it doesn't say that in the ratification of faith act that being a Jedi is the truth and the infallible truth and beyond exemption and knowledge area. There's only one truth. So it's all based on a family. So over here, God's the Father, Christ Church is Mother Church, and you're the children over there. And over here, King Charles, one of his titles is Father of the Nation. And again, when I was working this stuff out, I was just like, again, like that child, scratching around in the dark going, well, if he's the father, who's the mother? So then I thought, I had an inkling because I thought they'd just copy it. So I thought, wonder if the Church of England's known as Mother Church. And sure enough, it is. Church of England's Mother Church. And that's why you're wards of the state. Like, you're infants under control of a guardian who can come and take your personal property for legal reasons. We'll get onto that. So, once I understood this, it was just very apparent to me. It's like, that's what they're doing. So let's talk about what the United Kingdom is. And which is why in the Bible, like, if you become a citizen of the United Kingdom, I think it's like the first 4, maybe even 5 commandments that you break. Have no other gods before me. So you've left this father here, because in the Bible it says, call no man on earth father. Right, so there's that one. And there's also the fact that you're now an infant in another family. That's how it could be looked at. So, and the other thing is, the United Kingdom is a body politic. It's a polis, which is where we get the words policy, police, politicians. All of these things that are to do with the body politic. The United Kingdom, a legal fiction, which a fiction is a lie, which is why it's frowned upon in the Bible. It's a graven image. So the legal system calls graven images legal fictions, and the Bible calls them graven images. The dead. It's to do with the dead. I've titled this bit Logic and the Law. So if the United Kingdom is a body politic, and you probably heard me say, if you go to Wikipedia, you'll see those things. You'll see a Union Jack, and you'll see that coat of arms, and you can press play, and you'll hear the national anthem. Now, they have to give you these things because they can't show you what the United Kingdom is because it does not exist. It can be quite something for people that never thought about these concepts before to wrap their head around. Like Tesco's is just a creation of the law. It only exists, that law, which is why if you were to sue Tesco's, if the baked bean cans fell down on you and you broke your arm or something, Tesco isn't going to turn up to court and say, it wasn't me, I didn't push them and whatever. Tesco's barrister is going to have to be there because Tesco doesn't exist either, and nor does the United Kingdom. So a body politic is a political construct. If you just give me a second. Yeah. So a body politic is a political construct. Hiya, yeah. What was your point? What was the question?
Well, because in the Bible it says, "Render unto Caesar what is due to Caesar."
Yeah.
So
I've actually dissected that really, if I don't mind saying so myself, in my Government versus God article, has a really good breakdown, which will fry a lot of Christians' head because they just think they got to obey like Keir Starmer, but they don't know they all believe they live in the United Kingdom. A lot of these Christians, and they go by their legal name, and all of these things. They pay their taxes like good little citizens, good little Roman citizens. So the judge was basically saying, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. So he was saying to my guy who was in court, like, again, it was, as it happens, it was the same guy who will not let go of his surname. So it's like, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, your Caesar's. So that basically, and God, which is God. So that's the two systems. Again, there's only two systems. So that's effectively, that's what that judge meant when he said it, I'm sure. The United Kingdom is a political construct, a legal fiction. This is why it's represented at Wikipedia by a flag, a drawing of some heraldry, and an anthem. As you know, if a legal fiction needs to be represented by other things. So if you're at court, that's why you can't have anyone represent you at court. You've got to go there and do it yourself. You've got to learn to box yourself and spar yourself. And that's why I said in the old days of going to court, we used to physically lock arms with our client, and I've been wrestled apart by security from who we're going in the court with. And I understand why now, because the judges are like, I don't want to know what Clive Edwards thinks. It's all over the internet what he thinks. I want to know what you think, and what you think. You come in this world alone, you'll go out alone, and you're going to be judged in this realm if you want to swim against the tide. A judge is judged for God. So you can't let this room of people out because you want to have your own community. You're all possibly, like I did it without having to go before a judge, but very likely you're going to have to go before someone and explain why on earth you should be let out the sheep pen. That's what it's about. And if a judge is satisfied, like you're not going to go out there causing problems, then there's every likelihood like he'll let you out the sheep pen, or that the punishment won't come. Because I know people, like you're not going to get on the courts, outside the High Court with the arms in the air with the BBC going, "You're amazing, you beat the Crown, well done." That ain't going to happen. Like, the BBC's just a dog of the state, but yeah. But the illusion has to roll on, and I'm aware the illusion has to roll on. I say as much as I can say in the public without. Because I appreciate there are rules of the game. And I also appreciate there's horrible persons out there that I don't want having some of the information that I talk about and I know. Some people need to be governed. People don't need to be governed. Because they know if they tell a lie or steal something, game over. So I'm fully aware, as we all are aware, there's a lot of persons that need governing. And I'm grateful for the policy enforcers to kick them up the ass and throw them in a box if they need to. Because I don't want them around my place causing me a load of grief. So that's what the state are there for. It's like, yeah. But I think the game's changing. I think we're near the end of the game. I don't know all the answers. I certainly feel we're near the end times. And I'm not some, the end of the world is nigh and all that. But this digital ID stuff feels very much like the mark of the beast. And we've just gone through COVID. So we know how serious it is. Right. Yeah. So I certainly feel that we're in very serious times, which is why I've come out on the internet like I have. Because I feel that I've got so many answers and I'm just shouting them out and putting these presentations together. And I'm not here to convince anyone. Those that are going to take an interest, like you guys and your friends and people like you, are going to spark something in your mind. And you're going to go on your own mission and go on your own journey and go and find out if I'm telling the truth or not, because you're going to have to. And those that don't believe it and think it's a load of nonsense, well, they're going to have to work it out for themselves, just like I did. But I think time's running out. There's, like you say, this digital ID stuff that's coming in, and that's a real delineation in this path we're on. Because I really strongly feel that once they get that digital ID in, like the pain often comes, a bit like planning permission. Once they've got your name and you admitting on an application form all the stuff they need jurisdiction for, the baseball bat comes out, and they say no, take it down. You built it in the wrong place, rip it all down. And I feel that's what this digital ID thing is. They've got a big baseball bat waiting for a whole load of pain that they've got lined up. And once they've got the herd in the pen, then they're going to unleash the next realm of whatever they're going to unleash. And it certainly feels a little bit like Mark of the Beast stuff to me. But that's how it feels to me. I won't be touching it with a barge pole. I don't care if they take the mobile phone. I'm not allowed on the internet. Can't have a bank. I don't care. I'm not doing it. So back to this. Logic and the law. Yeah, so the United Kingdom is a legal fiction. So therefore, look, that's why they need you guys to be persons and legal fictions. It's common sense to me that if that's the big legal fiction, then that is why your local police force is listed on Dun & Bradstreet as a company. It has to be, doesn't it? It has to be a corporate. It has to be another corporate fiction, because that's a corporate fiction. That's why your local council listed in the Local Government Act 1972 as a body corporate. It says so in their own legislation. Again, it has to be, because something real cannot exist in something that doesn't exist. People cannot live in the United Kingdom. People live on Britain. And that is why, again, there's layers to this discussion, and, there's case law and different things, but I can't go into that now. But in the Interpretation Act 1889, it states that anyone who goes to court for summary and indictable offences are seen as a body corporate. Again, logic alone. If you're going to step into that realm, it's like the Wizard of Oz or whatever. I'm sure there's a better analogy than that. But if you're going to step into that realm, then you have to change from being one of the people, and they have to see you as being Mr. Edwards. And everyone, like, just go to your local magistrates. It's everyone in the magistrates court, the majority of them, 99.9% of them, are there just to get branded and have some currency taken off of them. And that because they all believe they've done something wrong in the United Kingdom, and they believe they're Mr. Smith or Mr. Jones. Well, if that's what they believe, then they're going to get punished. Because they've got to punish them over here, because this side, the Bible says, if you're over that side, you've turned your back on God. So God's gone like, yeah, they're not mine now, they're yours, to the king. They're yours. Because if you think about it, it was me being beaten up, like I was at the end of the road. It was me being beaten up that made me stop and think, what on earth is going on? How is this world run? This can't be. What's this all about? How can these people I've never met before end my life? So but I would never have, that's why I think the Bible says, like, it's easier for a camel to pass through an eye of a needle than like a rich man to go to heaven. Because if I was minted, I could have hired the best barrister in the world, and he could have dealt with my problems, and I would be none the wiser. I would not be free now, and I would not be back over here under the Creator. I'd still be over there, living a lie, thinking I was Mr. Edwards. So that's why, in my opinion, that all these little crown agents go out making your lives hell to try and wake you up. It's like, wake up, guys. Wake up. Parking, what a pain in the ass. Wake up. Council tax, what a nightmare. Is there another way? Wake up. A woman getting arrested for feeding pigeons. Wake up. Like, that's why these talks and, I think as people, ordinary people who may never have listened to someone like myself or whatever years ago, even, ordinary people are thinking, what on earth is going on? How does this work? And this Somerset guy seems to make sense. And that's why I like to come with the evidence. Like, you don't have to take I don't want you taking my word for any of it. Like, go in, all of my articles are linked and hyperlinked, and I link it to legislation and all of that. It's all there to find. So if United Kingdom is a legal fiction, what is Britain? So we got about 10 minutes left. Again, I don't know. I put this talk together over the last few days. This week I've been putting this talk together, so I don't know how well. I might have to slow it down or speed it up. Come the end, the last 10 minutes, I might be talking really fast. But we got about 10 minutes of this, and we'll have a cup of tea or something and get back to it. So Britain is the reality. That's what you see out your window. And this is important for you guys for planning. Because when the planning guys, when your council comes round, so the council can't come round, can it? Because it don't exist. So when these persons acting for the council come round to your place, they're going to be talking about legal land, stuff that does not exist. Now this is a lot it was a lot for me to get my head round, so I can understand how it sounds crazy. But they're talking about titles, that's all it is over here. United Kingdom is a title. When the council talking about their land, they're talking about their land titles. And when they're talking to you, they're talking to you as Mr. Smith or Mr. Jones. That's another title. So they can only deal in titles over here. And they have no jurisdiction over here. Again, it's like trying to explain the Eiffel Tower to a goldfish. That's why they're like, whoa. They will look at you crazy. And it says in the Bible that you will. You'll be considered mad. It says so in the Bible. Because these are polar opposites. These are opposite each other. Worldly affairs are, by definition, in opposition to the cause of Christ. And country is from the word contrary. You understand why? Well, all these things start to make sense when you see the bigger picture. Country would be contrary because it's contrary to the truth. A country is a lie. It's a legal fiction. The legal system just mimics the lawful system. That's all it does. It's a fake copy. So, are you free? What camp are you in? So, I mentioned earlier the definition of approbate reprobate doctrine, which in layman's terms, it's, the doctrine originates from the Latin quod approbo non reprobo, which translates to, that which I approve, I cannot disapprove. You can't accept the benefits of the state to fight the state. Like, you're straight into this system, and you can't be represented at court if you want to take on access the lawful jurisdiction. I can't go and represent Gerald or any of you guys in a court of law, because if Gerald wants to be free, he's going to have to tell the judge why he wants to be free and why he thinks he's above the law. And I often say, like, when I go to court, I always normally go in with a big sentence, a real big punchy something I want to get across to the judge. And for this speeding one, I was in Cardiff, and I said to myself, right, I'm going to tell the judge I'm above the law today. Because half the time I want to see what they do. I want to see if if their feathers get ruffled or like spit their dummy out. I want to try and get a reaction out of them. So we were in Cardiff Magistrates, and they sent a district judge into me for a Section 72 offence and not filling out a form. Trust me, you don't normally get district judges for Section 72 offences. So I said to him, he was saying this, that and the other. And I said, it doesn't matter, I'm above the law. Expecting, because that's a put down, isn't it? It's like, in society, it's like, oh, what, you think you're above the law, do you? Well, the Bible says you are above the law, because you lot now know the law's for the dead. Right? The law controls Mr. Edwards, Mr. Jones. The law is for the dead. So, I said I'm above the law. And he was looking down, he didn't even bat an eyelid, didn't even break a sweat. So, I like to go into court and have, I always try to do something different every single time. Like, prod the beast here to see what happens, prod the beast there. And that's how I learn anyway. I often learn something new from that.
Oh, sorry, quick question. How did you get into court being Mr. Clive Edwards? How when you were telling them your name was Clive?
So like I said, my local council wouldn't take me to court over a planning matter, right? Yeah, so I'm just trying to explain that. So I wanted to go in there for sparring, so I wanted to go. And I was like, got me sparring booked in for for whatever. So I went to Cardiff Magistrates and had a conversation, because I know what you're saying. The summons comes as Mr. Edwards. Yeah, well, I wanted to go and have a fight and have a chat about my name and what it might be, whether I'm above the law or not. So, yeah, because like I said, I felt I was getting rusty, because the council don't want to touch me. So I was sat around in my place going, I really had to scratch my head and think, what am I going to do now with all this, all this information and knowledge I've acquired over all these years? I've been all over the country. I haven't been all over the country, have I? I've been all over Britain. Right, I've been all over Britain helping other people in their court cases. And so I'm sat at home, I'm thinking, well, I've done it, I've made it. The council don't want to touch me. They told me they don't want to take me to court. So I'm like, what do I do now then? I thought I was getting rusty. And you need to, I feel anyway, like if you don't stay at the coalface, I played football and that, and if you don't go training for a couple of weeks, you soon go off the boil a bit. So I thought I need to get back in the court. So anyway, I did a few of these little things to get back in the courtroom. Like, it's a different mindset to do what we've got to do here, guys. If you want to live on the land, you can't be under the law. But that doesn't mean you go around being reckless. Like, you're judged by a higher set of laws. And if you're not in antithesis and antagonising this lot, then you can't really very well be over here, can you? Because these are opposites each other. I don't know if many of you watched that programme about Jesus called The Chosen. Yeah. In the intro to that, it shows a load of fish swimming along a river, all in the same direction. Like a school of fish. Pupils, all going the same way. All see things the same way. Then one of them gets woken up and he's like, oh, sod this, I'm going that way. Then a few others around him get woken up, and then they all start swimming against the tide, against the current, against the status quo. If you're not doing that, then you're in the current. You're over there. If you want to be free, you're going to have to start making splashes and causing a fuss. So I didn't mind causing a fuss. But anyway, that's another story. But I'm just saying, like, my mind is not constrained by the old shackles it used to be. I think a bit differently. Admittedly, it's a bit too strong for some. Whatever. But how I feel, to answer as much questions as I can get answered from this lot, so I can tell my daughter about it. That's where I'm coming from. Anyway, I think that'd be a good time to have a cup of tea. Right, we're ready to go, guys. So I think we're about halfway through on my index anyway, but that doesn't really mean much because I tend to go on a walkabout, wander, meander. So, right. Before break, there's a guy, John, I think his name is, married to an American lady. Oh, he's not back in yet? You're kidding me. You made a really good point. John, are you here? Yeah.
What's his surname?
Yeah.
Guilty.
So, John, can you remember the question? So I just want to tidy that up a little bit, actually, because it's not about being reckless. It's about taking full responsibility. Like, I take full liability for my actions. I know full well the consequences of what I do. So, John, I can't remember your question, but I said ask me when we get back because it was a good one. So
I think since you've kind of preempted it with that, the context of my question to Clive was is basically.
I'll tell you what. Can I pass you this? Would you mind? Are you happy to come up and just speaking to that, if you like, to the guys?
Okay. So yeah, the context of my question was based around.
Go on.
Whoa.
You looks like a rock star. You can. Don't tell me you can't handle a microphone.
All this.
Yeah.
The context of my question was based around Clive and his actions on driving a vehicle, and my interest was based on my belief under God and the Bible that if you're not going to put yourself under the authority of the United Kingdom or some of the lower authority, then you have to take full responsibility for your actions under an authority. We can't be without authority. Our authority, is God. It's the superior authority, the highest authority. Otherwise, we're just a rebel.
A law unto yourselves.
You're
the
a
Bible
law
says.
unto yourself, and you're not entitled to be a law unto yourself and bring harm to any other fellow man. And that's why we must have God as our authority. We can't just operate outside of the body politic, but also not take on the laws and the instructions and the commands that God gives us himself. Otherwise, we're just rebels in our own right.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John. And John touched on another good point. So we can't be laws unto ourselves. But the important thing is it's quite hard for people to get their head around sometimes, is that if you can license an activity, it has to be able to be done lawfully. You cannot license an unlawful activity. That's a mouthful, and it needs to be slowed down and thought about. I can't get a license to go and punch someone in the face outside of here. You can't license that because it's unlawful over here. So therefore, if you can license the activity of driving, you must, by definition, be able to do it lawfully. Because you can't license something that's unlawful. So there's no question, the Crown know what I'm doing and what I'm up to very, very well. And I want them to. I want to be known to the Crown and all their agents as, oh, that's that guy that we can't quite get our reins on. We can't bring him under a halter. And that's fine with me. So when they start dishing out war conscription, it's like, yeah, don't even bother with me, sunshine. I've had bigger arguments than this. Go away. Go and ask your citizens to do that. If that, go and speak to your citizens about that, not me, your subjects. And this is what I said to that guy that I was at court with yesterday. It's a blessing, really. I said to him, it's almost like a blessing that you've had the council putting you in a position now where you're at court and you're having to justify yourself, so, for want of a better phrase, to the Crown as to, and put your argument forward as to why you're doing what you're doing. Because it's not just about a planning permission. Like this, on the other side of this is freedom. It's about it's about loosening the chains that are put on you on this side. This is what I decided to do to find where the edges are of this argument. No one's going to tell me where the edges are. I've got to go out and find it myself because I want to be able to tell my daughter where the edges are. That's my motivation. And I'm just sharing with you some of the more tame things that I've learned along the way so that you can perhaps, navigate the system a bit yourselves at the level you're prepared to navigate it at. But yeah. So before lunch or break, we spoke about, or I mentioned approbate, reprobate, and that means did I explain about, you can't be getting government duck feed and then want to leave the duck farm. That doesn't work, does it? You can't be getting benefits, or let's say you can't be getting child benefits, then pull your children out of school. If the state policy is no, those children stay in school. That doesn't work. That's not going to work. You're going to get yourself in a lot of pain, and all that does is instigate to the Crown that you don't know what you're talking about, and they're going to beat you harder for even thinking about trying to leave the duck farm.
And same with pension, is it?
I was going to say,
We're all pension.
Yeah, I talk about, I don't profess to be an expert on all of it. Even in barristers' firms, they have barristers that specialise in certain things. But when I talk to people, I get questions from all fields. And I'd say I'm lucky, but when I was a carpenter, I was earning 25 quid a week apprentice. So I couldn't afford to pay into the National Insurance Scheme, which is your pension payments. So I didn't. And they said it was contributions, and I didn't know much, but I know that contributions sounds very voluntary to me, and I didn't fancy volunteering that. So I haven't got one. I'm not bothered about it. So it's a tricky one because I look out and, like you say, some people here have got state pensions. It's not your pension, and it's not in your name. So you could go down that road. You can make that argument. It's all about what argument you can put forward. Yeah, it's a tough one. But sometimes someone put on our forum there the other day, because sometimes the council, like I said, the councils do to the gypsies. Would you like some free money? That's the bait for the trap. Sometimes one of the strongest moves you could make is to walk away from the free money and say, no thanks. I don't know. You're going to have to make your own choices. But I haven't got a private pension and I don't have a state pension. That's what I did. Just like when the council said to me, you're not allowed to do that, what are you going to do now? I promise you, when the council said to me, don't stop building what you're doing there, Clive, stop now. I built something there twice as big. That's what I did. That's why I say they knew, that they would laugh if they said, well, does Clive listen to your enforcement? Are you his local authority? They'd laugh. They'd like, no, there's no way that guy's under our authority. And that's how it should. That's how I need it to be. That's why they left me alone. But so yeah, for you guys, let's translate that now to you guys who are here. It's called People on the Land. You're looking to perhaps get some field and grow some vegetables and keep a few animals. Whatever you're thinking about doing, you can't be doing that if you're taking child benefits or on the dole, or I'm just using phrases. I don't know, and I'm not judging anyone either, right? But I'm just saying you cannot do these things and then try and be free of the state, because you're going to get beaten up twice as hard for antagonising the beast, for being so. They would look how it'd be like, you want to leave the duck farm and you're taking the duck feed, get the big baseball bat out for this one. That's what it'll be, all right? So. That's why I say to people, if you're going to try and do this, again, I guess I'm a bit different because I didn't know this stuff. Again, I was just a child in the dark, blindfolded. So that legal name was on the electoral roll, and it was on there probably for a few years while I was making these arguments. But I was making these arguments. So the things I did, I wouldn't advise you to do. But so you're now understand that the electoral roll is evidence of your consent to be governed, and I've got the black belt barrister on my notice board on the website. He's stated it, and the only reason I mention him is because it's very rare to get barristers and people who understand the law to explain some of these key nuggets of information. So when you do get them sharing these nuggets of information, it's worth sharing. And so he says it as well. He says it's a very short clip, but he very clearly says that along the lines of, in fact, I wrote it down, but I won't be able to find it right now. But yeah, he admits that the electoral roll is, evidence of the your consent to be governed, which it is, isn't it? You had to make an application to get your name on the electoral register, which then entitles you to vote. That's the gateway into that system. You're now in over there and believing all that sort of stuff. So don't be moving on to your field and giving two fingers to the council if your name's on the electoral roll and you're claiming child benefit. Like you get your house in order, get your battle lines drawn up before you start a war. So, yeah, and on voting, it says in the Bible, Leviticus 27:2, speaking to the children of Israel and saying to them, when a man shall make a singular vow. Like a vow, anyone who's married in there knows what a vow is a serious word. That's what vote and vow are, interchangeable words. Like you're making a vow to these, you seriously making a vow to Keir Starmer and his gang. Like, yeah, yeah. So God says, like in the Bible, like you make a singular vow to me. So, yeah. By placing the name on the electoral register, you become eligible for jury service and war conscription. Like, they ain't going to call me up for jury service for many reasons, but one of them being the legal name is not on the electoral roll. And just so you know, like you want to be having this argument, I'd be running to the council and having an argument about planning permission, because in World War II, for war conscription, those that didn't want to go and fight in the war, conscientious objectors, had to go before the council offices were basically like seconded as like mini magistrates court. So if you get the letter from your council because you're on the electoral register, you most likely might go before your own local council and councillors, explaining them to why you shouldn't be going to fight in World War III, or your children, or whatever. So yeah, I always like to make that point because I saw this war conscription game coming a long way out. Yeah, by placing a name on the electoral register, you become eligible for war conscription, as I just said. So, and that is when you can also then vote and legally sign a petition, and that's when you become a subject of the king. Having the name on the electoral register makes you a UK resident and subject of the king. I go into great detail about that. Me and Richard Vobes had a really good chat about that, and the YouTube video is called The Shocking Truth About Government Petitions and Protests. I've linked it on this webpage that you can have a look at. So, in summary, registering the legal name onto the electoral register is evidence of the fact that you believe yourself to be a UK resident and citizen, which in turn makes you a subject of the king, thus breaking the first commandment and placing yourself into the legal secular realm jurisdiction. Because you can only believe you're part of that. The minute you change your mind, it's as easy as that. It's as easy as changing your mind. And authority means the power to convince. So that's why when you go before a court over your forthcoming planning situation, the judge will be trying to convince you that you're wrong. Just like the council and all my friends and family tried to convince me that there's no way I could do what I wanted to do. And authority means power to convince. So if you're prepared, like I said to someone in the break here who come and ask a question, if you're prepared to stand in front of the judge and walk towards the fire and prepared to feel the heat of that fire and possibly even get burnt, that shows that judge that you've got the faith in your convictions. Like you're prepared to walk through the fire for what you believe in. You're already halfway at the door then. He's lost that power to convince because you're now convicted by Christ or the teachings of the Bible. So, I've handed out some paperwork, didn't I? We're moving on to now, getting back to the Amish, right? Are the Christian Amish free? So I've passed around, and it's on this webpage, an affidavit from Levi Stutzman, who's an Amish guy over in Canada. And have you all had a look at that? Has it all been passed around? It's on the webpage there. So it's an affidavit of religious belief. And religion is nothing to do with this here. Religion is state sanctioned. It's over there. Church of England, Mother Church. Wrong church. So, yeah, affidavit of Levi Stutzman. We've already spoken about the legal name. This is an Amish guy. And so I'll just go through it now. So it's an affidavit of Levi Stutzman, name. I, Levi Stutzman, full name, am a Canadian citizen or permanent resident of Canada. Problems. I reside at, and I can't read the handwriting, but and it actually says in brackets on the form, civic address. So, as civil, Roman law, civil. Civil means secularly organised, or we'll get onto this, but secular, by definition, means in opposition to God. So, he's now signed, he's admitted he's got a secular civic address. Town, city, province, postal code. So, I say to you guys, to go to court, they need a legal name, they need a postal address, and a date of birth. So, he's given them all of those things. I make oath or solemnly affirm and say as follows. 1. The requirement to be fully vaccinated against conflicts with my sincerely held religious belief or practice that prohibits me from receiving the COVID. So like this affidavit, when I read it, I couldn't believe it, to be fair. Number 2. The nature of this sincerely held religious belief or practice is as follows. The Old Order Amish has been established religion in what became Canada since the 1700s. Our communities live on both sides of the Canadian-US border. We travel between communities for worship and to exercise our fundamental freedoms as laid out in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, paragraph 2. Freedom of conscience and religion. C, freedom of peaceful assembly. And D, freedom of association within our church community. Also, we believe in allowing our unwed children to travel from one community to another to establish relationships. We do not get vaccinated. We do not believe in government handouts, nor do we consent to government social mandates. We are plain people. We do not have cars, telephones, computers. We support our own private one-room schools. We do pay property and education taxes. Wow. We do not vote during any public elections, but we pray for those running for office. We do not serve jury duty. We do not have property insurance. We do not engage in lawsuits. We are conscientious objectors of the military. We are in the world, but not of it. God created us and we depend on him. Now, if I'm God looking at this, and I don't mean to be harsh, but he's lying. He's a liar. And that's why he's going to get beaten. That's why you get beaten heavily at court. Like, he's saying all these things, but he's saying them from a position over there. Everything he stated places him firmly over there in Canada, in the body politic known as Canada. I mean, he said religious, I don't know how many times. He's got a civic address, a legal name. And so once you can understand these two jurisdictions, and you read something like that, I mean, this is painful for me to read. I feel sorry for this guy. I feel sorry for their community.
I would say uninformed rather than lying. How do you say this?
No, I would disagree. He's lying. This is an affidavit where he said that he lives in Canada. That's a lie. Canada, the body politic, is a lie. Fiction means lie. Yeah, I don't know. Fiction means lie. Like, I'm looking at this guy as a liar, and it's not I know how judges will look at this. I do know one thing: how a judge will look at that is like, you is lying. You're going to get beaten. Get the big bat. Although the Amish may be very private individuals, they use a state-issued legal name. Like, because God's turned his back on him as well. He's now under another father. Like, he's broken all the commandments. Well, not all of them, but he's broken like the first 4. So, yeah, although the Amish may be very private individuals, they use state-issued legal name, are citizens and residents of Canada, the body politic, claim a civic address, have religious beliefs. And again, see my article, Dear Christian Countrymen. I strongly advise people have a read of that if you want to understand a bit more about religion and why it's like offensive to God. They claim legal exemption under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. if you're nowhere on there did I see any Bible verses. I didn't see any Bible verses. Like, this is a book of law. He's quoted section this and section that of the Canadian. Why wasn't he quoting section 2? Why wasn't he quoting chapter and verse over here? That's what I do. There's a book of law there. Why isn't he using the book of law? Why, if you're everything he's claimed a civic address. He's claimed the religion of the state, so civic addresses of the state, religions of the state, and and he's now using the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms as his defence. Now, Jesus, when he mentioned to the Jews, when they accused him, he said, "Doesn't your law say this?" And that's what I do in my paperwork. I spoke to someone in the break there. So I don't claim the Fraud Act. I say, doesn't your Fraud Act say that? Doesn't your Constitution say that? Like, because they don't have to believe what I believe, but they will believe their own laws. So I point to their laws. I don't claim their laws. I say, your Fraud Act says this. Your Constitution says that. My book says this. We're all in agreement. You should be leaving me alone. And that's ultimately when you can point to their laws and this law book and explain to them why they should be leaving you alone. Eventually they will, if you've convinced them enough that you can be trusted to be let out of the sheep pen. Because I spoke to a lady there in the break, and she was concerned, or it seemed like she was concerned that I don't want to misquote her, I don't want to get it wrong, but it was along the gist of, like, what happens if you hurt someone, and what happens if you and I kind of explained, this is self-policing over here. If you hurt someone, or if intentionally, then you, by default, you've lost there, you're straight there. If you tell a lie, you've lost there, you've gone there. If you steal something, you've lost there, you're over there. This is self-policing, which is why the council went to me, whoa, he's holding himself to a higher set of laws. He's out of our jurisdiction, leave him alone. Yeah.
Could I ask you what version of the Bible you quote when referring to, when quoting the Bible?
Yeah, so the question is, what Bible do you quote from, and perhaps what Bible should you quote from? And I've got an article called "Christians, Have You Been Deceived?" where this is why a lot of Christians that I talk to, and I've been to a few churches because I thought, oh crikey, I've got to start going to church now. And I would gently, after a month or so, sort of start talking about persons. And they'd look at me like my head fell off. So I'm like, oh, wrong church. And I went around a few churches, and I'm not being disrespectful to them, they just don't understand. And that's why I wrote the article, Dear Christians, Have You Been Deceived? Because, thank you, Victoria, too close to the microphone. Yeah, because, so the point was, what Bible do you, and I read and quote from the King James Version, 1611. And the only reason I did that, again, like I said at the start, I didn't know nothing about nothing. I didn't know which Bible, I'd never read a Bible in my life. But what I did do was find out what the Crown regard as evidence. And they said, you got to read the KJV. In fact, they said, that's the authorised version. So I thought, right, fair enough. I'll read that one. And it's a hard one to read. It's not good. It's not easy. But trust me, after a few months of having a go, you'll soon pick it up. So I read and quote from the KJV 1611 for two reasons. Well, I didn't. The reason initially is because I didn't know anything else. And that's the one that the Crown. So my adversary says, if you're going to quote the Bible, you best use that one. So I did. I didn't know about other Bibles, and I didn't know other Bibles were different to that one. I had no clue. So I was reading that one and quoting that one for years and years and years. And then when I was going to church, I'm like, all these Christians, half of them don't even read the Old Testament. I'm like, if I might have a conversation about talking about this, that, or the other, or the Old Testament, they look at you like your head's falling off. Almost like you're so retarded, is that you're not moved on from the Old Testament. It's like, Jesus comes in the New Testament, guy. It's like, yeah, but if you don't know where you come from, and like you don't read a novel and just read the last few pages. So anyway, this is my thinking. So I'm talking to these Christians, and I'm like, crikey, half of them don't even read the Old Testament. They're reading the wrong Bible, as in, when I say wrong from a law, I'm talking from my whole world perspective is from a legal and lawful position. That's all I think about is these two paradigms. Because my life revolves around that, and my freedom. So this is more than just me chatting. This is my life. So when I go to these churches and chat to these Christians that only read the New Testament and they're reading from the New International Version or the English Standard Version or whatever version they're reading from, I mean, there's so many versions, and it wasn't until like I started comparing versions, and they're so different from the KJV. And I know what they've done. They've taken all the juicy bits out of the KJV, and the new ones don't contain it. You're never going to understand this if you read some of the new versions. You won't. It's really hard. It's impossible. Because in the KJV, they'll talk about persons being bad, and they'll talk about man and people. For instance, I'll just pluck one out. In the NIV, the New International Version, maybe all it talks about is persons. It doesn't differentiate between man, people. It's like person this, person that. My persons come through the Red Sea and all. It's like, how on earth? You ain't going to find out about this if you don't know the difference between persons and people. So, it's only when I was going to church, because I was like quite excited. Obviously, I learnt a lot of stuff, and I'm like, oh, go and talk to some Christians. I even went to some place in Bristol, done this, I think they call it these alpha courses. I got invited round, obviously. I sent them an email, can I come? And so this church, and I went round this lady's house, and there's like 6 of them in there. And I was like, and they sort of said, what are you doing here? And I just said, I want to come and see what Christians talk about. Like, I was the weird one. And so that's what I did. And then I soon realised, like, these guys, from my perspective, like, and I admit I've got a very different perspective on a lot of things, but I felt sorry. Well, not that I felt sorry, but they were just alien to me, and I was alien to them. And then I realised that we're reading different books completely. So I hope that answers your question. But yeah.
Sorry, would it be right in saying that the King James Bible may have been written by King James for this system?
Listen, I say this because I hear arguments. People say, yeah, that's been doctored and he wrote a satanic book. And I don't care about all that. Well, I kind of do, but let me get to my point. I've only been on this planet. I've been on this planet 52 years coming up this year, right? I've only been awake for like 50, nearly 20 now of those years. Like what I would call like, God reached in, said, wake up now, boy. We got a job to do. So I've been awake for 20 of those years. I knew nothing. All I knew was how to hammer a nail into wood and run around and kick a football around, right? None of those things equipped me for actually what the meaning of life and how it all works and all that, right? So I've only been what I would class awake for 20 years. That's a speck of dust. And there's been generations, thousands, whatever, many more people, far more intelligent than me that's been on this planet before me. And they've all come to the agreement, or it seems to be like, yeah, the Bible's like this book of truth. It's like anyone who's serious ultimately gets to the Bible. So I had this background knowledge of like, yeah, all these really intelligent people were talking about the Bible and how it's true. And all the actors of state all use the Bible. And it's all these guys that are coming after me. So at the start, it didn't matter that I believed it or not. I was like, well, they all use it. Why are they using it? That was my, again, I was like a child in a cave. Like, it's like, why are they using the Bible? What's the Bible got to do with this? So I was like, so that's when I started looking at it. So it almost didn't matter that, and you're right, there's been changes and different things, but all I can say is, when I found it to be true, like myself, spiritually and literally, as in literal, as in the words, and also when I started quoting that book back at them, like if you like the guys that wrote it and authorised it, when I started quoting back at them, it's almost like they give you the sword and go, there you go. And I go, oh, thanks, sword. And I go, woof. And they go, whoa. That's what happened. So I'm like, oh, I'll start reading a bit more. I'll start using this sword a bit more. That's me, simple guy, just going A plus B equals C. Obviously, then the more I thought, this book. So I started, obviously, the more and more, and it sort of drags you in. Like I'm neck deep in it now. And I know, like, I can't be convinced by you or judge or anyone else because I've been convicted by Christ. Right. Amish. Back to the Amish. Right. Interestingly, the foot of the... Yeah. So I've gone through... I've read the... So I've read the affidavit of the Amish guy. And we can clearly see, right, so this Christian community, who we all pretty much all agreed at the start would have been the most free community that we could imagine in the Western world, and here they are, signed up. They're neck deep in it as much as you guys, citizens of the state. And that's what I say to people about these private. I'll just touch on these private members associations, which I hear about. I'm not knocking. I'm just trying to save you. I'm trying to save you a lot of pain and a lot of time, because if I'd have messed about with private trusts or private members associations, I'd probably be in prison or the farm would be knocked down. I didn't read anywhere in here about private members associations, about Jesus' secret gang or whatever. That wasn't in there. Or about Jesus putting stuff in trusts. Now, I'm not saying obviously people can look at the relationship of God given dominion over the earth as a trust relationship. So I'm not going to, but listen, I just look at things simply. And I just read what the book says and then fire it back at these, and it's like, holy water. They all shrink and run away. So I don't bother getting in. And I've given a technical reason about trusts, why private trusts don't work and can't work. Now, I'm not saying you can't leave your children stuff go to a solicitor and write a will. I'm not saying you can't do that and that these things aren't helpful. I'm saying don't think you can buy a field, put it in a private trust, and the council are going to leave you alone. That's a different argument and a different thing altogether. And it doesn't work. I've got members of our community on Capillary Wave who've tried it and done it, and it don't work. So, again, it all depends on the argument you're having. If you're talking about a private trust and you're arguing over a parking ticket and you're successful, then that's just because, it might be just because the parking ticket people went, I can't be bothered with this one. Next. It doesn't mean it's right. And there's been whole communities and movements off the back of a parking ticket. One of them's David Ward affidavit thing. I spoke with David when he was alive. Again, I've been doing this nearly 20 years now. And I couldn't have spoke well. Yeah. And he admitted, and he's out there on interview saying that his process is born off the back of an affidavit thing. And you're not necessarily going to be able to build a farm doing it with this. So with a private trust, what you're doing, there's only this over here is all titles, and this jurisdiction here is is the reality. Sorry, reality here, titles there. So God's the reality, like your farm, your field, and your chickens, and whatever you've got on there, that exists in this jurisdiction. The council, for everything that's real, the states, for everything that's real, put a legal title over it. So God created a John, and the state have gone, yeah, that's John Jones. John gets a car, a Mini, and the state have gone, that's a vehicle. John uses God's land, and the state have gone, yeah, that's ordinance survey number such and such. For everything that's real, the state give it a title. So they don't touch God's stuff, they can't, but they can touch what they created, and they created titles. This is why private trusts ain't going to work, because what are you putting in their trust? You can't put this in a trust, it's already been given to you.
Sorry to interrupt. Have you heard of the Community Assembly of the British
Yeah,
Isles?
Cabby, yeah,
You know about the trust.
Oh, I don't know about their trust, and again, I'm not here to knock whatever, I'm just...
It's just, I'll tell you what, it's 50 pages of all the quotes from the Bible about law. It was devised by some, well, not devised, quoted by people from the Maoris from New Zealand, I think, right, anyway, New Zealand. And basically, it's 2 pages of you just saying, well, everything in my house, everything, whatever. And basically, it's 50 pages of quotes from the
Yeah, so that's an interesting thing. You said you quote like everything in my house, and that's the thing. That's why I don't need a trust, because I don't own anything. And when you don't own anything, that's when you can get freedom. What do the council say to you? Is that your house? Is that your car? We're taking your car. We're taking your house. Are these your children? Everything's created by God there, and everything's created by the state there. When you go, hang on a minute, none of this is mine. Go and see me dad. I don't need a trust. Yeah, well, again, there's some people, yeah. When I say go and see me dad, I mean because my dad's bigger than their dad. Yeah. Right now, I'm only halfway through, and it's my own fault. I'm sorry. Let's crack on. Because there's some real big stuff about land and things. So let's get there. Right, my fault. Let's turn it up again. Amish Farms Lane. So I've linked in this description. So the Amish, Ezra Levant of Rebel News, did a report on the Amish that when COVID came, because the Amish don't have mobile phones and TVs and all this stuff, they were going from Canada to the US, seeing the other Amish communities, and they didn't download an app that you're meant to download in Canada for I don't know what it's called, right? It's something like the CAN app. Okay, and of course these Amish were going back and they were getting $6,000 or thousands of pounds fines for not following the regulations. Okay, and they didn't know about it. They don't even have phones. So turns out that they amassed hundreds of thousands of pounds of fines between their community from travelling the border back and forth during COVID. And when some of the Amish latterly went to get bank loans or whatever for their farm, and the bank said, oh, you've got a lien on your farm. So the government put liens on their farms. Right, so that's the state putting liens on their farms so they couldn't get bank loans and stuff because they've got outstanding fines. Now, obviously, I say the state put liens on their farms. That's not quite right. It's not quite accurate. The state put liens on titles. All right, and because these Amish going by, and I got this affidavit from that report from Ezra Levant, Rebel News. I downloaded it. It's on his. Anyway, I got it from there. So because the Amish community are a very private community, they don't sort of broadcast much about what they do. So it was a really interesting insight into me as to how these Amish, who I and many people think of as so removed from society, that they were able to get their farms leaned and they amassed all these fines. But when you look at it, they're citizens just like the rest of us are and were. So they're not free, and they're not a private members association. They're citizens just like the rest of us were. So if they're not free, and we agreed pretty much to, at the start that they were the most likely to be free in the Western world that you could be, little chance are that anyone in this room is either. That's not to say you can't be, and that goes back to my point also. If this was a community, if I was speaking to a community here, if this was the Bournemouth community of Christians, and you all want to go and you as a community aren't going to buy that land, buy that title and move on as a community and be free as a community. That's not how it works. Every one of you are going to have to go through the sheep gate on your own and prove to someone what your conviction is, not what the community conviction is as a group or as the leader of the. Warren, I've promoted you to the leader of the Bournemouth Christian community. As the leader of the community, what he believes, that's not how it works. A judge wants to know, and freedom is only attained by you facing the fire and following your convictions. Now, whatever that conviction is, whether you're convicted by that system or that one.
Sorry, what you're saying, I think, is they are the gatekeepers to who gets into this.
So he said they're the legal team at the side of the gatekeepers as to who gets in that. I suppose effectively they are, because they've got judges, but the judges judge for God. So there are gatekeepers. Yeah, I mean, there are gatekeepers. And, well, I was prepared to go before one, but I did enough damage that they were like, no, not you. Go away. You've proved enough. I proved enough to them without going to a judge. And I was willing to prove I'd go anywhere. Like most people say, like, oh, don't speak to the Lord Chancellor about this, or don't speak to the lead counsellor about this, or you want to speak to our legal department? Are you mad? Yeah, I do. I want to have a chat with them. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, that was the attitude probably of myself. Certainly some members of my family would be like, oh, crikey, we've got the legal department now from the council writing to us. Like, yeah, I want to be in communication with them because I want to tell them what I know. And if I make a good enough job of it, they're going to go, whoa. Because the law binds them, not me. They're bound by the law, not me. The law's written for dead corporate entities. And that system is entirely dead corporate entities. So they're bound by the law. And that's how you can become successful, when you take their constitution, show them their Fraud Act and their Equality Act, and go, you're not allowed to do that. Like, you're not allowed to do that for many reasons here, but you might be an atheist or you might not believe that, so I'll park that for a minute, but you're not allowed to do it because of what your laws say as well. And that's how you win that's how you win. So you can't solve a problem with the same level of consciousness that created it. I say this quite often, but it's if you can understand this as well, it's a real help. So why relying upon legislation as a defence cannot work? So like that Amish guy who was relying on the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, you can't go around talking about the Bill of Rights Act and the English Constitution. I did a video of that. I was put in an awkward position, and but anyway, I won't go into that. But I did a video on the English Constitution compared to the Bible, and funnily enough, all the English Constitution documents have got that badge at the top. Yeah, that coat of arms, the Bill of Rights, and they wear these badges. That's because they're telling you what jurisdictions it's in. So let me just have a. So yeah, so why rely upon legislation as a defence cannot work? A country, also known as a body politic, is administered using civil law, which is Roman law. So the word, for me, when I started, I just bought a law dictionary and I bought an Oxford dictionary. Again, I didn't like reading, but then my Sundays I started reading law dictionaries, and I actually find it interesting from someone who never used to read, because I was amazed at what some of these words meant. And when they would write me letters, and I would check it in a law dictionary, and it was like I was getting all this ammunition just for understanding what the words meant, and that would enable me then to write a letter back to them, asking them questions. And that's what I did. And then they left me alone at the start maybe a week, and then eventually they left me alone for 6 months. And then the more questions I asked and the more I understood, they just, in the end, obviously in the very end, they just like, we don't want to talk to you. You're just causing us problem after problem. So civil means, this system is set up under civil law. And civil law is Roman law, and civil law is secularly organised. And secular is living in the world, which should be painful to hear for Christians. Like, living in the world, that's not what you're meant to be doing. And belonging to the state, that's what secular means. And of course now, we understand now, obviously it's belonging to the state. So when you use that state legal name, and that state postal address, and that state religion, and those state rules as your defence, then you are standing firmly over there. And you belong to the state. If you're claiming all these secular things, you belong to the state. And sadly, most of you either are now or did at one point belong to the state, just as I did. So this is the killer for me. I couldn't actually believe it when I first saw this, but secular means the exclusion of belief in God from matters of ethics and morality. That's true. Now we understand these two systems. God doesn't exist over there. Well, not the Lord God, not the Father of creation. Anyway, maybe it's a different God. Well, it is a different God there. I won't go into that. But so yeah, it's the exclusion of the belief in God, because you've obviously, if you understood what God said, you wouldn't be over there, because you broke like the first 4 of his 10 commandments to get there. Of matters of ethics and morality. So let's think of the Hague trials. So these soldiers were so-called hung because they didn't, because they did what they were told to do. One of the main jobs of a soldier is to do exactly what he's told. Don't question it. Go over the trench. Do it. If you question things, you ain't going to be a good soldier. So a soldier's pure role is to follow legal orders. Imagine these soldiers like, well, I was just doing what I was told. But they were found guilty, judged by this standard, by the conscience, by ethical and matters of morality, which is lacking over here. It's not lacking here. This is the foundation of it. So they were judged against this standard. They must have been there going, bloody hell, I did what you said. And they've gone, yeah, kind of bad, kind of morally not right, and But there's no ethics and morality over there, and there's no God. And so I've mentioned this on our forum, but I believe, and I would be doing, I'd be using the Hague trials as my defence for planning permission. Yeah. Because if soldiers are morally obligated not to follow legal laws, why the hell should you follow the Town and Country Planning Act if you are under that? Now, I think that's huge. But, and I wouldn't be afraid to use that argument at all. In fact, I've been itching for a chance to use it. And it's, how can you argue? Like, I don't think you can. That's how I go through life. It's like, I look at it from their side. It's like, he's got a good point there. Can we prove it wrong? And I look at it from my side going, that sounds like, how I value my position, my stance is I look at it from their perspective. How can they attack me? And I look at it from my perspective. What evidence can I use? So I just use their evidence. They've got the Hague trials, and I would use that as a defence for if I was you guys, that would be in my paperwork. It's like, yeah, these soldiers were found guilty. At the Hague, and for reasons we've just discussed. But anyway, I'd definitely be using that, just like I'd use other councils' constitutions to make my point. What are they going to say? All we're doing, and all I've done is make arguments. And if your argument is cast iron, then that's why they've left me alone. Now, I'm not saying I've got it all right. I've made tons of mistakes. Like I've told you at the start, I was still on the electoral register, giving it the big one. And I risked all kinds of problems. But, this boils down to how good an argument you can make. That's what it comes down to. You guys have got to make an argument. It doesn't have to be, just make a good argument. And make sure it stands up from both sides. If they can't attack it and you can back it up, you trust me, you've got the advantage, you've got the book, you've got their kryptonite. But you can't, and that's the point actually, someone mentioned before, and it's just reminded me, this ain't a tool to be played with. This ain't a tool. Now, I don't expect you to set up your own church tomorrow, and I always say, you can't climb a ladder by getting on the top rung. You've got to start on the bottom rungs. And I was, like I said, I wouldn't have said I was an atheist, but I wouldn't have gone that hard line on it. But don't come at me with the Bible. So at first, I used it as a bit of a tool. I was like, I'll take that out of there and I'll shove that into them there. And it worked. It was like pouring salt on a snail. They were like, oh, crikey. So I thought, but that was the hook that got me in. Like the Bible dragged me in, and then it became less of a tool and more of a way of life. But if you're going to toy about with it, you can't. I think that's self-evident. What I'm saying is you can't play about with it because you will come unstuck.
You actually wrote to the Attorney General at one point. I think it'd be interesting to actually divulge a little bit about what you actually wrote.
Well, listen, yeah. So the guy said, I wrote to the Attorney General. Can you divulge a bit about what I wrote? And I don't like divulging what I wrote because I don't want 100 little robots in here doing exactly the same as me. Use your own brains. If you do what I did, you're not thinking for yourself and you're easy to beat. I try to train people so that they're not easy to beat. The SAS are trained differently to your average soldier. They're told to use their minds. They're plonked in behind enemy lines and they've got to use their own nous to get out of it and do what they got to do. So I don't do template letters because I don't want 100 little soldier robots going, yes, sir, Clive did this, because then it becomes the religion of Clive. And that's against the law. I don't want you following me. I don't want you to take my word for anything I say. Go and do your own research. See if I'm telling lies. And it just so happens I'm able to prove everything I say. And if I can prove everything I say against people that would like to lock me up, then I feel I've got quite a strong position. Now, I'm not saying it's 100% nailed down. I'm not saying I haven't made mistakes. I'm not saying there's not more I can learn, because there is. So I'm not going to tell you what I wrote to the Attorney General, but I'll tell you why I wrote to him. And it's really simple. Because I understood what the word attorney means. I told you I just used to read dictionaries. That's how boring I became. Like my missus was like, what's up with him? But so a turn means to turn from one lord and go and serve another lord. There's only 2 jurisdictions. It doesn't say turn from many lords and so you turn away from this lord. This is default here. And I went over there. So that's when I realised, oh, crikey, they got an attorney general. Just like in the army, there's a general that oversees, all the soldiers. Well, they got an attorney general. So I thought, well, he's probably the guy I should write to and say, I've been a bit of an idiot. Which is what I did. Like, I would happily write a letter saying, like, I've been an idiot, been a fool. Say it how you like. I don't know, there's a million ways to say you've made mistakes and you've done wrong. It's not that I don't go pointing at them saying, you're corrupt, you're this, you're that. Because rightly so, someone said to me once, if you're pointing at someone, there's 3 fingers pointing back at you. And we do this all to ourselves. I've been running around saying I was Clive Edwards for the longest time. Like, that's a lie. So I don't want to start gobbing off at someone who knows a damn sight more about the law than I do. So I just wrote him a letter in simple terms, not trying to sound like a solicitor or a lawyer, and just said, yeah, I've made some mistakes. And, or whatever, I want to go back, I want to turn back and go back to my father, or whatever language you want to use. So do it in your own words, and then it'll be more authentic, won't it? It'll be more believable. If I get 100 letters from the Bournemouth Christian community now, and I'm the Attorney General, I'm going, what idiots told them to write this? Like, you're just going to end up on the chopping block. So, yeah, don't ever take templates. A template shows, if I'm your adversary and I get templates, I'm laughing. I'm getting the big, big bat out. I'm celebrating. Because it shows me you haven't got a clue about what you're talking about, because somebody else has written your letter and you've just signed it at the bottom. That shows a level of stupidity to me, and I don't mean to offend anyone, but why would you sign something you don't understand? And I would say that again to you guys here now, don't be going and moving on the field and that if you don't understand what you're doing and why you are doing it. Why? Don't do it if you don't, I didn't mind a fight, because when I knew they were lying, I'm like, right, game on. I'm up for a scrap. That's not a problem. Because I knew they were lying. And that was enough to like the touch paper of me. It's like, I'll do anything now. Like, I know you guys, if you had a good argument, you wouldn't need to lie to me. It'd be easy to prove your position and then throw me in jail. It's like, oh, why are you here, Clive? They done me, I broke this law, I broke that law, and they proved their case, so I'm in prison. Like, but they couldn't do that. They had to lie. So I'm like, right, I don't know why you're lying yet, but we'll get to the bottom of it and we'll have some fun. And that's what I did, because I actually enjoyed it, but yeah. So I don't know where that went, why we got there, but
Can I just ask, so how do you refer to yourself if you're not Clive Edwards, if you see around?
well, I tell people who don't understand things yet and don't understand who and what they are, right? Just stick with your Christian name. And the reason I say Christian name, it's called a Christian name, like your Christ name. Right? And it'd be very hard to get you at court if your adversary is calling you by your Christ name. So let's just say you're Janet. They need Janet Jones to be able to get you to court. If you get them to agree your name's Janet, which has happened, that's the first thing I get our members to do, is to start writing to your council, like, agree with it. All right, hang on. Let's get back to the script, shall we? Because this is all coming. So, but we'll do questions at the end. So anything I miss, but I'm happy to have a chat. But let's try and keep on script. Otherwise, yeah. So I'll just read the definition of a district. So if you're a citizen like that Amish guy, he's going to be in a district. And a district is a territory under the jurisdiction of a lord or officer. Okay? It's an offender's jurisdiction, which of course it would be, wouldn't it? They are going to be offenders because you've offended, like you broke the first 4 of the 10 commandments. It's a feudal system, area of jurisdiction, district within which the Lord may take and withhold personal property. And anyone that's seen my video of that old couple down in Egham, who had their farm robbed off them, because they did. Look, they're nice people, but they didn't know what they were involved in. They didn't understand this. So, bless him, like Danny said, like, well, you've probably heard him on the video, he said, I paid me taxes all my life, Clive. I wrote to the MP, and I'm there going, oh, jeez, yeah, I know. Yeah, that's why they took your farm. He was a good little citizen. Now, it's not for me. I'm not, it's not for me. What can I do? Do you know what I mean? I just shared his story to help in the hope of waking up, which it did. It woke up that other farmer who they were trying to do the same to him, but he called it a little bit earlier, and now he understands this. Now he's got every chance of being able to save his farm. So yeah, being a good little citizen ain't going to help you. It's not going to help your family either. Because yeah, you're an offender. You're an offender. That's why they get to beat you up at will and take your stuff at will, if it's in their way or they want it. So ward, we you know, ward and district goes together when you're voting in your local wards for your next MP or whatever. And a ward base is an infant in. Oh, so I've said here a ward. If you're a ward of the state, you're an infant in the wrong family. It means the minor under control of a guardian, in reference to an administrative district of a town or city, a division of the people under a particular leader or guardian. So, yeah, that's what a ward is. And that's what your council's constitutions talks about. And actually, Jerry, in the interval, said about, you know, the Americans have got their constitution. And it's a good way of thinking about it, actually, because he said, well, we've got our constitution. Your local councils, it's not yours, obviously, but it's, you can look at it as that's the people's constitution. Use that to beat him over the head with it. Because in that constitution is enough ammunition to make them think twice about sending the tanks into your new endeavours on your field. So, a question of logic. A stark matter of fact from the evidence of the two systems of law and governance displayed on the stage here and online is this. You cannot find freedom by using a political method of the body politic United Kingdom. You guys are essentially looking for freedom. That's why you're here. You cannot find freedom over there, like that Amish guy. What, you're going to use the Bill of Rights Act with that stamp, that coat of arms stamped right at the top of it? You're going to stand under that act? You're going to get a barrister to put a really good legal argument forward for you and be represented, Mr. Smith? Can you see the problems with that now? Am I making sense? Can you see the issues with? Brilliant, because yeah, that's good. Otherwise, I'm failing in my job. If you can't see that that's a problem, making a political, you cannot gain freedom using that system which isn't designed to give you freedom. So, and you can't gain freedom, like you're not going to vote reform out of this. Like, oh, reform will be, yeah, they're going to let me live on my field. Nigel, yeah, yeah, what a joke. But they're just taking the piss out of their voters. They're literally taking the piss. What have they got to do to make people wake up? What have they got to do? Hello, Andy. I didn't see you there.
What do you call it again? Farage has just gone to WEF.
Yeah, I did see that. But when you understand these two systems, guys, which you guys do, you understand the game. It's like, that's the game. He's not going to do anything. You can't explain the Eiffel Tower to a goldfish. Farage is in that bowl over there swimming around. He's quite a big fish in that bowl. But anyway, yeah. And listen, imagine relying on Keir Starmer to get your freedom. I honestly wouldn't let that guy muck my chickens out. Are you serious? Like, that's what I mean. Like, they're just a joke to me, and I just cringe. You can take your freedom tomorrow, today, now. You don't need to ask me for it. You don't need to ask your wife for it. Or you might need to ask your wife. But yeah, you can take control of your lives tomorrow, now. Just by understanding this and gaining some knowledge of how the system works. That's what I did. I didn't need to. You've got all the bullets and all the ammunition you need. That's wrong phrases. I was going to probably get videos taken down and all sorts. But yeah, I'm not advocating violence. No, but you've got all the ammunition you need, guys, to take it. But you're going to need courage and you're going to need to face the fire. You might not need to face the fire, but at least be prepared to. So, I've titled this bit, So You Want to Be Free, Prove It. And by that, I've got a picture of the birth certificate here, right? So, you can't prove what your name is. Well, there's levels to this discussion. Obviously, I believe that I can, right? But I'm not going to get into that. Let's talk about the legal. Your adversary coming after you, Mr. Smith, you're going to get these fields and you're going to put polytunnels up and you might get a chicken and you haven't registered it, so you're going to get DEFRA onto you. You're going to get the planning department onto you because you're selling eggs at the gate, and now that's a toxic thing. You're threatening the health of the public. You're threatening the health of their citizens. So just on that note, actually, I've got a saying that I use, which is, where the public goes, jurisdiction flows. So if you've got a farm and you've got a few llamas and a few chickens or whatever you've got on goats on your farm, and you invite the local school in every Wednesday to pet the animals, you're inviting the Crown in. Like, you're either public or you're private, and you've got a right to a private life. But if you're public, that's public, this is private. The legal, everything's owned in common over there. Commoners. If you're inviting, I'll just use that as a good example because there's a lot of these petting zoos about, but it's just some, you know, you've got to be, you've got a right to a private life, but that doesn't mean inviting the all these state citizens onto your private. You're inviting goldfish to see the Eiffel Tower. It can't work. Or you at least have to be very delicate about it. All right. I mean, I rent out shipping containers, which to friends and friends and friends of friends is my rule. Like, you know, I don't advertise it, so it's not publicly advertised that you can generate. You're going to be looking to generate cash. We all need a bit of cash to get by, don't we? You're going to be buying animals and putting up buildings and whatever. Yeah.
What if your land has right of ways all around it?
Yeah. So number one, it's obviously not my land. And this, I know I make a joke of it, but it's serious because the council say your land, yours, 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 and it's not. It's very clear in the book of law who owns it, and we're going to get onto a minute who owns it on this side. It's a biggie. So yeah, right of ways. If you're going to go and buy a field, because you can buy a field is like wheat or straw, isn't it? You can have a field of wheat, a field of straw. You can buy a field, but I don't think you can buy land. You can buy a title, but I don't think you can buy land. Anyway, just a note. But I wouldn't personally, I wouldn't go and buy a title to some land that's got public right of way, because the council enforcement officers will use that. That's just me. I would. If you can avoid it, avoid it. So yeah, you can again. So you want to be acting in the private. This is private over here, and that's public over there. So it can be done, but you just can't have all the school children coming in on a bus every Wednesday to come see the animals.
But it's not be obvious, but if you've got a mortgage on a title to a land or a property, that's part of that. So do you have, I mean...
Yeah, so it's still a separation now, because even like for me, if I wanted to buy another field, I'd go to a solicitor because I'd have to, and get it conveyed, or what, conveyance, so the citizen would move away, and now I can use it. But nobody's arguing that land is that land. The council will try and confuse. To confuse means to put two separate things, fuse them together. So I always make distinctions. And their birth certificate proves that that's not my name. Because it says on it, warning, do not use as evidence of identity. So I take their birth certificate and said, that's not my name, we'll prove it. Yeah, there's the birth certificate. It says it's not my identity. Do you see what I mean? So that land title, well, we're going to get onto the land in a minute. We're going to get onto so there's a big distinction in a minute, which we'll get to. So, my point being with this birth certificate thing is, if you can't prove your legal name, if you can't prove your name, nor can your adversary. And that's why, so for you guys who are thinking about moving on the land, etc., look forward to having the council come around and use that interaction. Don't run away from it. Get them, go up and say, hi, I'm Bob, or I'm Clive. Hi Clive, what are you planning on doing? Well, I might get some sheep and might put a few shed up here and there. And I might say to them, look, if you want to write to me, and I'd be recording it, because I never talk to the council without having a recording of it. Because if you can't record it, you've got no evidence. And if you've got the enforcement officer calling me Clive, then now we've agreed my name's Clive. The Bible says agree with thine adversary. It says do that before he takes you to the officer and takes you to the judge and throws you in jail. The Bible says these things. So then some of our members from Capillary have even got the council writing to them as Clive in the Christian name. So now you've got a sheet of paper from the council who are now calling me Clive. And this is where I do use their legislation, but I point to it. I don't claim it. I know, because I'm obviously the path I've been on, I know the processes they've got to go to get me to court and to get you to court. If you can get your adversary to agree with you from the outset that your name's Dave, John, Joanna, Mary, and if you can get the cherry on top with them writing to you as Dave, John, Joanna and Mary, now you've got evidence, written evidence that your council has agreed what your name is. Now, we all know in this room that if they now want to issue enforcement, they're going to have to convert that name now from Dave to Dave Jones or Mr. Jones. They are now misrepresenting your name, what's already been agreed. That's fraud by their own rules. The Fraud Act 2006. Your two favourite legislation, right? And it ain't the Bill of Rights, and you're not claiming civil rights. It's the Fraud Act and the Equality Act. The Fraud Act 2006 and the Equality Act 2010. And this is why I tell people to use a Christian name and to phrase it as a Christian name. The Equality Act protects certain characteristics in their own rules. You're allowed to have a Christian faith, a belief, in their rules. I don't need to be told that by them. I already know it, but their rules say that. So you've got a Christian name, a Christ name. So use it. Don't use their legal name. And it's protected by their Equality Act. Now, don't claim their Equality Act like that Amish guy's just done. You say, hang on a minute, like Jesus did. Doesn't your law say ye are gods, Jesus said? So you do the same. Doesn't your law say that a Christian name is a protected characteristic? I'm not claiming the Equality Act. I'm telling them about their rules. And then you can say, because fraud is when you, if you change something, or if you mislead, listen, a polite way of saying you're accusing someone of fraud is saying, that's a bit misleading, or that's a misrepresentation. That's the same words as fraud. It's not, hang on. They're not the same words clearly, but those words are in the Fraud Act. So use the words that are in their act. So their Fraud Act uses words like misrepresentation, misleading. So make sure those words are in your, don't say false, don't say fake, don't say some other words. Use the words that are in their act. And in their Fraud Act, it says you're not allowed to mislead. You're not allowed to misrepresent. And if you play your cards right, you'll have some paperwork from the council calling you David. Now, they're misrepresenting that agreement when they start calling you David Jones, which they cannot prove is your name's David Jones. Impossible. Cannot be done. So you're always in the position of advantage if you take it. So like, hang on a minute. Your Fraud Act says you're not allowed to misrepresent our name. Here's Exhibit A. Your headed paper calling me Dave. Why you now misrepresent my name as Mr. David Jones? Because fraud is when you've got the potential, not that you have, the potential to be caused a loss. And if they've changed your name from David to David Jones, you now have the potential of going to court and losing your farm. That's fraud by their own rules. That's how you turn a civil claim from planning into a criminal claim against them. Does that make sense? That's how. Now that is a very thorny issue for them, and it cannot be denied.
What other government documents could be brought into that argument to say
None.
that your identity is shown as this on a passport?
The Crown does not force. Nobody tells you what you are, and that's why when people say to me, "Well, what's my name then, Clive?" It's like, I can't tell. The Crown doesn't even do that, and I'm not going to. You're going to have to read this book, aren't you? And you've got a Christ name, so use that for the time being, so you work out what your name is. Where was I at? Oh yeah, so they can't go around, again, this is an argument that cannot be broken, because all they've got is a legal document, this is called a certified copy of an entry, that tells you on there, don't use this to identify yourself. So David Jones on there, it's like, don't be calling me David Jones, because your document says, don't. I used their birth certificate as Exhibit A. I did that for the guy yesterday in Crown Court. Exhibit A was a birth certificate. Because in the council's witness statement against him for a planning matter, they write the name exactly as it is on the birth certificate. Because it is about the birth certificate. And the judge yesterday didn't bat an eyelid at the paperwork. So, going back to your point, they can't... Look, their argument, when you understand this is lies there, let me say these two jurisdictions another way. Lies and truth. Truth beats lies every single time. They've got to confuse and misdirect and use the illusion of authority and threat and force because they got nothing to back it up. And as soon as you lose that fear and go and front it up, they melt away. Like these big bruising coppers that come round my place calling me Mr. Edwards and saying I'm a customer. I'm like, well, why am I a customer? And they don't know the answers because they don't read anything either, like I didn't. They just use force and threat. So anyway, going back to your point, they cannot... I told you can't prove your name's David Jones. Nowhere. So how can they? If you're David Jones and you can't prove your name's David Jones, which you cannot, because the proof of your name's somewhere else. It ain't there. So you can't prove your name's David Jones. How can your adversary, which is why I say to everyone, start talking to the council and insist that your name's David, insist that they write to you as David. Because those that are Christian will understand that you don't accept titles. Job 32:21-22. Accept no man's titles or person. So if you listen to the Bible, it says don't accept. The Bible gives you the clues. Like, don't do that and you'll stay out of trouble. So the Bible says don't accept man's person or titles. So a surname is a title. That's what a surname is. A Mr. is a title. So it's like, you can't be calling me David Jones because it goes against my faith and what I'm told in the book of law. So don't do that, please. Respect my faith and stand by your Equality Act 2010, which says you're meant to. It's your act, not mine. Here's my book there. That's a hard position for them to get out of. Again, this is all about just making arguments. It's all this is.
If you've got a driving licence and a passport and you've seen that, can they turn around and say, well, you've got a passport, it's in there?
Yeah, but you're the holder of a passport, right? So you hold the passport and you're the bearer of you're a bearer of a passport and the holder of a driving licence. They don't say it's yours. They say you're the holder of it. And you can only hold things over there because you don't own it. The Crown does.
Does that include bank accounts as well?
Yeah. It's not your bank account, which is why the bank, you go and try and get $5,000 at your bank tomorrow. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. What do you mean it's my money? So if it was yours, just say, give it to you. It ain't yours. So yeah, it's not your bank account. So yeah, your point was about the name. They can't prove their name. And this is why they say Mr. Edwards and why they get you, can you fill out this application, please? Once they've got that, you've given them everything they need to get you to court and beat you over the head. So straight at the bat, don't give it to them.
What's your opinion on choosing to identify as your legal title when it benefits you?
Yeah, that's a good point. So exactly that. So last year I went into hospital and had a small operation. And so it was a case of like, I need to get it sorted. And so I got it sorted and come on home. But that's a bit different than applying for a child benefit. And now I'm asking for duck feed. Because also the NHS has got a constitution. Like, not many people know that. And it's called the People's Constitution, something like that. So again, it's about making an argument. I could make an argument that NHS is there for the people, which it is, I believe, as they should. But again, the council, my Benedict Council didn't know about the Constitution for planning matters. But their Constitution, they're accountable to people. I think they're there to serve the people. That's my own personal thoughts. Right. And this is why this is powerful. Now, you've got to have some nerve and you've got to be able to make a good argument. And you've got to be able to prove it. I can't say this enough. You've got to record every conversation you're in with an enforcement officer, anyone from the council, because they lie on oath. They lie in the court and they'll lie. They'll say, I never called you David. You've always been Mr. Jones. And it's like, and keep your powder dry. Save that for if it goes to court and you get this guy, because you will have the enforcement officer in the witness box. Court is a fantastic opportunity to crush the case permanently, because now you've got these enforcement officers under oath in a court of law, and I always record everything in court as well. So then you bring out your bat hello, enforcement officer. Remember when you met me at the first time at the gate and you called me David? No, I don't. You've always been Mr. Jones. I'll give you a chance. It was a long time ago. I'll give you a chance to collect your memory. Remember when you called me David? I think you even wrote me a letter as David. No, I don't believe so. Would you like me to play the recording of that interaction? It's like, oops. Once you like, forcing one thing's forcing everything. That's their maxim. So like, now you're not going to get, the judge isn't going to go, well played there, that man. Like, you got it. You got your moment. Yeah. Get the BBC in. Get your, on the court. That ain't going to happen. But what might happen is the judge is still going to spank your backside in court because there's a show to be had, right? They're all in costume. There's a show to be had. That enforcement, you can't go turn up in court going, yeah, I believe in God, tick. Jesus is my saviour, tick. You're not my authority. Have I won? Like, nah, it don't work like that, right? So the judge is still going to give to the judges. Look, the judge is full up with crown persons. The courtroom's full of these. He's not going to come in and go, you've won. You believe in God. Have you got a Bible? No, but I'm going to buy one tomorrow. Okay, on you go. Next. It's like everyone's going to go in and go, bloody hell, I'm going to buy the Bible tomorrow as well. Yeah, and me. Oh, and me. Yeah. It don't work like that. He's going to kick your ass just as well as anyone else. But what might happen is the court order might not turn up. Now, I spoke to those that were at the planning weekend. I told a story where that has happened. I've seen it happen on more than one occasion. And one of the guys in the audience, Sean, his name was, said, oh, bloody, that happened to me as well. Because I've been in that many court cases, I can see the patterns and I can see the overall picture. So what will happen is if you convince that judge that he's in safe hands letting you out of that courtroom, because he's got to go and put his head on his pillow that night and he's got to meet his maker one day and he's told that you judge from me, God. So if he lets one out and you're given the impressions that you're a bit sketchy and you're wrong and you're going to steal your neighbour's chickens and I'm not sure about him, he ain't going to let you out the gate. But if you're in that courtroom, in all the crossfire, because everyone else in that courtroom is going to think you think you're above the law and you're some kind of like whatever, renegade or whatever, then, but if you can stand there and hold your position and make a good argument and convince the judge that actually, because the judge understands this, clearly, the judge knows this, he takes an oath on both sides. So if you can convince him that you're safe to be let out the sheep gate on your way, and he can put his head at night not having to worry about, that one I let out today, I think he's wrong and I don't think I should have done that. That ain't going to go down too well. So it comes down to you. And so in the courtroom, you're still going to get a spanking, but what my point is, the judge might not sign the order that says you have to smash your farm up or that they're going to send the boys round. That's what happens. I've seen that happen. And there's a few faces here that were at the planning weekend, and other people have sort of said that as well. So it's down to you. Like I say, it all comes down to making an argument. And you'll be surprised what passes online. Like I see it online a lot. There's a lot of people obviously in this space, whatever you want to call it, what I'm doing. And but very few of them come with facts and evidence. And that was one thing I decided. If I'm going to start opening my mouth up online, I'm just going to bring all the evidence because I can. So it's down to you to make your arguments.
Do you work in a similar way in court as Robin Hood?
I'm not good in Lycra.
Okay, you know who I mean.
I've heard the name. I don't know what his position is. I don't. Yeah, I'm not going there. I don't know. I don't know what his position is. Yeah, I couldn't comment because I don't have not slightest, and I'm not interested either. To be quite, I don't mean that rude or whatever. Like what? Why? Again, it comes back to this for me. I've been so busy ploughing my field, and I mean that metaphorically. Like I've had the state on my back who want to do me harm. I haven't been able to look over and go and start examining what. So I can't take anyone else's word for stuff. So I don't know what some of these other guys are doing, and I don't really care. I'm not going to waste my time finding out because I've come out the other side. So yeah, and I don't mean that. I'm still aware that there's a lot for me to learn, a heck of a lot for me to learn, but I don't want to start arguing with or getting involved in their methods and all that either. It's not something I like to do. So, agree with thine adversary. So the Bible says, agree with thine adversary quickly whilst thou art in the way with him, lest at any time the adversary deliver thee to the judge, and the judge deliver thee to the officer, and thou be cast into prison. Like, the Bible does give us all the clues, guys. It really does. So it goes back to what I'm saying here. Establish the facts early and get your adversary to agree with you. They cannot prove otherwise. You've got the high ground in all of this. Like, when you sit down and think about it, you've got the high ground. They can't prove. They're based on lies. You've got truth. They agree this book is true, and this book says don't do what they say. Work that out.
But you have got to be convicted by one or the other. So like the guy
Yeah.
that asked about the Hagen and were they judged by two different things. That's the issue when you try and he used the word flip flop from one to the other. If we flip flop from one to the other,
Can't be done.
You're going to get caught out all the time. So you have to be fully convicted in one system or the other system.
Yeah, you can't. In the Bible, it says I can't remember the quote of the chapter and verse, but Jesus basically says when you're ploughing the field, like, don't be looking over your shoulder. Keep your eyes forward. It's a bit like in the Matrix. That's Cephas, whatever is the bald guy. He wants to go back in the illusion. He's like, I want to be rich. I want to. It's like, take me back. I don't care. I know it's a lie. Put me back in there. So he went back. He looked back. And Jesus said, don't look back. Keep going forward. And that's why the armour of God, I've said this before, but the armour of God says in the Bible about putting on the armour of God, put on the helmet, the breastplate, the feet gear, but there's no backplate. God don't do retreats. There's no option to retreat. Keep going forward.
The thing round your neck has gone red. Does that mean something?
That might be the government. That's it. If I die, oh no. yeah, that's the one I'm looking. If you see a load of dots come on my head, let me know. Right. Anyway, so right, let's get right. Yeah. So yeah, like I said, establish the facts. This is key for you guys who want to get on a bit of land. You've got to establish the facts. If you can't make the argument, and if you can't prove your case, because look, it's easy for you to make the argument. You've got all the tools to do so. It's easy for you to prove your case. You can now, from this position, use their rules against them and this rule book. All the tools are in your favour. So establish the facts and never ever chat to these people at the gate. It's such a crime for me. It does my head in when I speak to people and it's like, oh, I had a chat with it and he called me David. And do you record it? No. Well, it's gone. You've got to be able to pull this out in court. If you want to stop them smashing your farm up and maybe even not even take you to court. I mean, I had that much ammo on them. They were like, this dude, we can't, he's going to make us look fools if we could get him in court. Because I'd have tied him around it because I had all the recordings. I could prove everything. So they didn't want me near their courtrooms because I'd make them look a bit silly. That's what you guys got to do. No one else is going to be able to get that recording for you. And if you've left your camera at home or the dog ate your homework, judge don't care. But
it could be that, look, after hundreds and hundreds of years of man adding and altering and adapting different versions of the Bible, then you might find that there's a double bluff somewhere, and you can't trust what they're saying is right. But if anyone in this room is going to go away and take anything from this, is the Word of God is divine. And so that will come out in an argument, because whatever version of Bible it is irrelevant, because God will give you the words that you need to use at the time having your argument with your adversary, because his word's divine and he'll bring it to you. You have to believe that. If you need to put your belief in a book written by a man and adapted by a man, then you're probably going to have some opportunity to fail. But if you put your belief in Christ and God alone, then you won't fail.
But listen, what that guy said, I would agree with. But I understand, like, if you're not there already, it's maybe you're bordering atheism, like I was.
No. I'm just saying I don't trust that. I believe in what I feel within me, which is God exists. I believe that God is within us. I don't believe in trusting.
You're saying
Yeah, it's like. Yeah, it's like, how can you trust a liar, essentially? It's like, we know they're liars, so why should you trust a liar? basically, listen, how I say it is they give you the tools, like all the tools. You got the Fraud Act and the Equality Act. They give you the tools. All the tools you need to beat them is in their own rules. You just got the diligence to go and find it. I don't know what else to say.
And in the Bible that they refer to.
100%. Yeah.
I think that's the point. Is that
Yeah, the Bible they refer.
whatever Bible you have allegiance to or believe
Yeah.
is the truth is irrelevant. It's what
That's right. That's my
what
position.
they use is a get out of jail free card.
Yes.
Because they set out the terms
Exactly.
that you use against them.
Exactly that. And what you said is exactly right. And that's where I was at. I wasn't doing cartwheels for Jesus or whatever. I wasn't that guy, and I wasn't going to church. So I used it. I took their word, like I said. And it's like, well, they said that this Bible's the one you should use, so that's the one I use. And it just so happens it's the best one as well. I feel. Well, that didn't stop me getting. I've got a Geneva Bible, and I've got many other Bibles now, and I compare them. So I do my due diligence, but you won't go far wrong with a King James. You won't stick with a King James 1611. It's hard to read, and that's why a lot of Christians don't like reading it because it's not easy. But all the real nuggets are in there. It's the meat. The Bible talks about having meat and milk, doesn't it? And they've taken a lot of the other new versions. They've taken all the good stuff out. Let me get to the key part because the time's ticking on. So. Right, this is a big bit that I wanted to get to for you guys today. So, who owns the land? A conundrum explained. So, hang on, have I jumped it a bit here? Right, yeah. So, So, going back to establishing the facts, we just talked a lot about the name there. The other one, what's the 2 questions a judge and a copper will ask you? What's your name? Where do you live? What's your name? Where do you live? Legal name, postal address. Legal name, postal address. The Amish guy did exactly the same. The first 2 questions a copper or a judge wants to know. What's your name? Where do you live? And we hang ourselves straight at the trap. All right, so that's a fatal mistake. If you believe you live in the United Kingdom with a name David Jones, you've already cooked yourself before you got out of the trap. So I have stated that the most basic question that everyone gets wrong is what is your name and where do you live? I mean, that's unbelievable, isn't it? What's your name? Where do you live? We all get it wrong.
What do you say?
My Christian name is Sean and I live inside myself.
Well, that's a good. Well, I live in this body. Yeah. And if you want, I know some of you guys will be familiar. I'll play you a bit of a court thing where I did at Yeovil Magistrates Court. You might enjoy, so I'll play that at the end, where I have a bit of banter with. It's not. So I'll play the court thing at the end, okay? Where I get into that in a courtroom where I mentioned like, where do you live? And I live here. We'll get that at the end. So remind me that at the end. So I've stated that the most basic question that everyone gets wrong is what is your name and where do you live? I mean that's shocking, isn't it? And we all now know that that's true. That is because, and that's it. Like if you don't know your name and where do you live, no wonder we lose at court. How can you possibly win at court if you don't know what your name is or where you live? But that's what happens. So, what your name is and where you live is of the utmost importance. Do you exist on Britain with a Christian name, i.e. the lawful jurisdiction under the law of God, or do you live in the United Kingdom with a legal name at a postal address? The Bible states this about who owns the land. The land shall not be bought or sold forever. The land is mine. Leviticus 25:23. Yet the Crown states this about who owns the land. So, right, big bomb time. So the Bible clearly states, they say, this book's true. This book says, I own the land. It ain't your land. Don't be claiming it as your land. The Crown state this about who owns the land. Yet the Crown states this about who owns the land in their Land Registration Act 2002. The Crown is the only absolute owner of land in England and Wales. Boom. That should sound shockwaves around the legal world and around your world. Because the council want to take you to court because you reckon they say you own the land. Although you can have an enforcement notice put against you if you've got an interest in the land. So I can own the land, and if you're living on that land, they can take you to court because you've got an interest in it. But here's an act of Parliament where the Crown state that they are the absolute owner of land in England and Wales. So,
What did they say, Clive?
I've linked it on this webpage, okay? So the Crown says in the Land Registration Act 2002, and I've linked the notes to that act here and the photograph of it. So they say, I'll read it out from this photograph here. The Land Registration Act 2002. The Crown is the only and absolute owner of land in England and Wales. All others hold estates in land. Estates which derive from feudal terms of tenure. Yeah, originally took many forms but were reduced. This is in the notes that go along with that Act of Parliament. So you've got now some more ammunition. So when the council, I would hold this if I was in your shoes. Keep your powder dry on that one, because I would get them to say, "What? So yeah." They'd be like, "You own this land, do you, Dave?" And it's like, "Well, is that your claim that I own it? Is that what this is about? Because I own the land." Get them to say that it's because you own the land. Then, at the right time, you bring out the big bat and go, "Yeah, but all this enforcement is because you said I own the land." Well, your Act of Parliament says the Crown own the land. So what are you doing with me? So it's a really big weapon. But I would keep your powder dry on that. Don't go shutting your mouth off about that in the early stages.
They also claim that council tax is payable by the landowner and the property owner.
I think council tax is. Did I say that? Council twats? Yeah. I think council tax is. Well, I know because I've read the Act. It's only payable on dwellings.
Yeah.
And the Bible says, if you dwell on the face of the earth, then a snare shall surely befall you.
Yeah.
Well, so I know Andy's nuts know this, but the Bible says if you dwell on the face of the earth, a snare will befall you. So there's the earth. This side. So what's the face of the earth?
The world.
That's the face of the earth. There, so I told you they put a title over it, didn't I? There's Britain. There's United Kingdom. The face of the earth. So council tax is only due on dwellings in the United Kingdom, obviously. And the Bible says don't dwell on earth. Like a snare will befall you. Like it tells you. Admittedly, it's hard to read and it doesn't always make sense straight off the bat, but so that was my last speaking event for a little while, because I'm looking to get back to writing some content for my website. And I'm also looking to create some new videos on my YouTube channel which can expand upon some of these topics. And I've got one in the pipeline at the moment about identity. So do subscribe to my YouTube channel to keep up to date with some of this new content that's coming out. And if you are interested in this subject matter, the things that we discussed at Bournemouth there, then I would highly advise that you become a gold member at Capillary, because we talk about these subjects daily on the forum. There's people on the forum from all over Britain. We've got Australians, Canadians, the Irish. So we've got a great community of people there building, where lots of information is shared and discussed. And I've got my private articles there, things that I can't really discuss in the public arena. So do come and join us there. But until then, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Keep an eye out for the new content coming out, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.